Traina, Tainah, and BadDog on a special LockedOn Giants live edition. That's coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the games start. What is up, Giant fans? Stand up. I'm never going to do it as good as he is. But
stand up, Patricia Traina. We're back on with Locked On Giants. Super excited to be back with BadDog and Patricia. And we got a big game coming up this week.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. They're all big. All big.
And in case you guys haven't noticed, BadDog hasn't shaved. We were talking about this just before off the air. We were talking about superstitions. BadDog has not shaved. He's not going to shave, I guess, until Saturday or whatever it is.
So, Papa Guzzo, if you're in the chat, Chris's dad gives me a hard time when I don't shave. So, yeah, that's why we didn't shave. Tomorrow we shave.
And for those of you who got a little nervous because on the crossover show yesterday that I did with Wig, I picked the Giants. I know I said I would pick the Giants moving forward in my Giants country predictions. I'm a little superstitious too. So if I pick the Jaguars to win, forgive me. I'm not being, wishy-washy. It's just I got a little bit of superstition too. And if I got to take one for the team, I got to take one for the team, right?
Right.
It's been working for me. I'll tell you that right now.
I wish our words actually had that much power.
I know, seriously.
Really
what's our superstition? BadDog and myself, we wear sunglasses at halftime. It's worked the last 2 weeks.
You're kidding. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, we do. We put the
shades
live,
on, right?
What did you say?
You broadcast live, right? During
broadcast live, yeah, we do the play-by-play, yeah.
Oh, that must be so much fun. See, I wish I could do that, but I can't. They don't let me do it, so I'm not allowed to have fun. But anyway, guys, we got to talk about this game. Jaguars, the record's 2-3, but we were talking about this before. 2-4.
Yeah,
2-4. That's right. They make me a little nervous because I don't think they're as bad as their record indicates. You agree?
Yeah, I was talking before we started the show. The more I look into their team, the more I look into their numbers, the more I understand why. Even though I do think it's a sign of disrespect, we're 5-1. They're 2-4. They've lost 3 straight. But they're better than their record indicates. They have talent on this football team. They're top half of the league in both offense and defense. They have a ton of really good young players on the defensive side of the ball. And, yeah, I worry about some of the mismatches on the other side with Travis Etienne coming out of the backfield, Evan Ingram. I mean, we saw what we did against Mark Andrews last week at the tight end spot. Hopefully he bobbles a couple of balls against us this week. And, obviously, Christian Kirk in the slot. I think he could be a mismatch against our defense as well. But if we could get them in passing situations, obvious passing situations, second and longs, third and longs, I think Wink could have success against Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and we're there. I think where the Jaguars are strong, that's kind of where the Giants are weak. That's how I see it in certain areas. I'm concerned about the running game, their running game versus the run defense. I know last week, Wink said they allowed a little, some extra run yardage, just to bottle up Lamar Jackson, but the run defense hasn't really been, as stout as you'd like it to be all season long. Yeah. So I'm concerned.
The other thing is, the Jags rushing defense is top 5 in the league, and they're third in yards per carry against. So their strength is also our strength. So, like Chris said, when I delved into the numbers a little bit, I'm like, oh, maybe that's why we're underdogs in this game. Plus, I mean, we haven't won in Jackson. I don't remember the last time we won in Jackson.
I don't think they have.
Lost to them.
I'm pretty sure they haven't won in Jacksonville. I could be
wrong.
I'm going to look at it right now. That's a good point to bring up. I'm going to look that up right now.
Yeah,
we only play them every 4 years. I know we haven't beaten them since 2010. So
right.
I know 2014 was the Blake Bortles running for about 70 yards against us. That's when we were both terrible. We blew a 21-0 lead at the half, and then the last time we played him, Barkley. I remember Barkley having a really big run in that game for a touchdown his rookie year, but we ended up losing like 20-15 or something. And I don't know. It just worries me.
That was the famous game where John Mara said he wanted to fire everybody, right?
That was the game where Eric Flowers gave up a safety on the first drive.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever it was. Like, it was 3 sacks in a row or something like that, and it was all on Eric Flowers in the first. Yeah, it was that game.
Thanks for bringing him up.
Well, I mean, we're going to see another old friend in Evan Ingram, who, according to, I posted a Q&A with John Shipley of Jaguar Report, and also I had Tony Wiggins on yesterday. By the way, people, if you missed that show, you got to check it out. Wig is just the best. But apparently, Evan's doing pretty well down there in Jacksonville.
Sometimes a change of scenery helps. There's a lot. Listen, playing in New York, there's nothing like it in sports. The media is tough. The fans are tough. They expect a lot out of their team, and sometimes, mentally it's hard to adjust to that. Some guys never do, and then we kind of go to a place like Jacksonville where you're not under a microscope quite as big as you are here. You can just kind of relax and play football. So. I figured he might be a little bit better down. He's always had a lot of talent. I mean, he was always open. He was always a mismatch, incredibly athletic, fast guy. Just he had a hard time catching the ball here. And it seemed like every time we targeted him, inevitably he would knock the ball up in the air. His drops were like at the worst time. So they were magnified, like the one against the Eagles in 2020 where the game was over and he dropped it. Or like I said, something will deflect off of him and it get picked off. Like Chris said, hopefully that Evan Ingram shows up this week. That'd be
nice. That'd be nice.
And they have worked on, somebody I think asked me in Twitter, it might have been, had they been working on, tip balls and stuff? Yes, they have, from what I understand.
You better be when you're going up against Evan Ingram. We know that better than anybody. But
and for who I just looked it up, the Giants have never won at Jacksonville.
I was about to say it. Yeah, Jacksonville.
They played a total of 7 games, but 3 at Jacksonville. They've lost 25-24, 26-10, and 40-13 going back to 1997. So the most recent one was in 2014. They lost 25-24.
That was the one where he blew the 21-0 lead.
Yes, I think that was the one, if I'm not mistaken. Then John Mara said, "I want to fire everybody," or I felt like firing everybody.
Yeah, he was one. They were 1-10. And we weren't any better, but they were a really bad team in 2014. And
that was a major.
So we're due. That's just so we never won there. All good things come to an end, so their winning streak has to come to an end.
Let's do it.
And absolutely. And this is a new regime with Brian Dable, who continues to have the magic touch. Press all the right buttons. I really like this, and I'm going to say this over and over, I'm sure, and you guys are probably going to get sick of me saying this. I like how the mindset that Dable has put into this locker room.
Of course.
I figured, okay, after 6 weeks, this team has to have an identity. And I asked him, I said, what's the identity of this team? And he just kind of looked at me and shrugged and kind of, very modestly put his head down. Well, we just want to get better every week. And, he just totally kind of, I don't want to say blew off the question, but he didn't come out and say, oh, tough, smart, right. Fundamentally, like a McAdoo or, or a Joe Judge or anything like that. Just said we're just trying to get better, a little bit better every day. And you know what? This question I think bears asking, and I'll put it to you guys. Do you see the week by week improvement in this team, or do you see this team kind of, stalling out in certain areas?
No, I definitely see a week by week improvement with this team. And I definitely, maybe he won't say it. Maybe Dable won't say the team's identity, but I think there's a clear identity with this team, and it's old school Giants football. It's chew up the clock, rely on the defense, win the time of possession. And that's what they've done the last 2 weeks. We're 5th in the league in time of possession. You got to go back 12 years where we were that high in the NFL. We were like 30th each of the last 5 years. So that to me is the identity of this football team. They realize the limitations of the offense. They realize they can't, as of now, with all their weapons out there, and they're they're not the best in terms of pass protection with the offensive line. They realize they got to chew up the clock, come up with key third down conversions, and that's exactly what they've done. They've had 2 drives over 7 minutes over the last 2 weeks, and that's the identity of this football team. Rely on the defense, chew up the clock on offense, much like we beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That's this New York Giants football team, and Danny Jones has done a great job, doing what he's been asked to do, which is come up with big plays in the big moments, and hopefully he can continue to do that. But, yeah, to me, that's the identity. And I will say the one unit that has really stood out to me the last 2 weeks in terms of improving, it's been the offensive line. It's not there yet, where it needs to be, but it's definitely trending that way. It's gotten better. Evan Neal's gotten better. Even the interior, even Bredesen's gotten better. So
Bredesen had a huge, I mean, again, you take PFF with a grain of salt, but he had one of the highest PFF grades of the entire week last week. So definitely encouraging. I don't think there's any question about that.
And Jones, I think, has gotten better every week too.
Yes.
So, to me, I think fighters. I mean, that's the Giants have been down 4 games going to the fourth quarter, and they just don't quit. Like, they just don't quit. They never stop. They believe that they can get it done. And that's why at the beginning of the year, I said winning builds culture. You get in your head that we've been here before, we've been down, we can come back, we can do this. You have a much more positive mindset about actually accomplishing that. Whereas when you start losing and something bad happens, you're like, oh, here we go again. So again, we talked about it last week, the mental aspect of this team, but I think they're very tough mentally. And I don't think they ever let anything bad get them down. I think this team is gritty. It's tough. And, I've used the comparison to the 1990 Giants, and that was a Super Bowl team. And this team doesn't have near the talent. I mean, that team had, Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, and, Phil Simms. And, but they were the same type of team where they didn't light up the scoreboard. They won a lot of games where they did run OJ Anderson, and the defense just shut the offense down. They won time possession. I mean, the game against the Bills, they had 40 minutes of time possession in the Super Bowl. That's how they won. So again, I'm not saying this team is the 1990. I wish they were, because that's my favorite Giants team of all time. But because I love that they beat San Francisco in Candlestick. I'll never forget that one as long as I live. That was fantastic. Yeah. But they remind me a lot of that team where, again, it's not a high flying, sexy offense. You're not going to go, oh, look at this. Like, it's not the Buffalo Bills. It's not the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's incredibly effective, and I love it. Like Chris said, it's old school Giants football. And, I know Giants fans, you're 5-1, and some guys like the media or whatever, the analysts, they're going to have a letdown. I don't think Brian Daboll will allow that to happen. I just have a feeling that he's more of a guy that's 1 week at a time approach. They're not looking ahead. They're looking at this opponent, and then when they get past this opponent, they're going to move on to the next one. Very Bill Belichick-esque. So I love what they're doing. It makes me proud, man. It's been a long time since I've had a team to say, hey, this reminds me of the old school Giants.
Yesterday on the show, Tony Wiggins came up with, I think, a great analogy for what the Giants are doing. He said they're not winning like on this is Fifth Avenue, the glamour, the lighting up the scoreboard. He says they're winning like this is the Bronx. They're dragging you into the back alley and they're beating the snot out of you. It's a knockdown, drag out. And he says they're showing toughness, grit, fight. And I thought that's exactly. I mean,
listen,
I thought that was
we
perfect.
are. You have a head coach that realizes what this team is. They're not a team. I not that I'm comparing them to this team. The early 90s Knicks, though, they realized that too. They realized they didn't have the glamour and the high, flying, offense like the Chicago Bulls did. They knew in order for them to have a chance to win, they had to grind it out. And I think the Giants realized the same thing. They can't go up against the Kansas City Chiefs and throw the ball 50 times and win football games. They can't go up against the Buffalo Bills, throw the ball 50 times and win football games. They're a team that needs to control the pace. They need to get the game grimy. They got to get it dirty. And that's Giants football. That's always been Giants football. And I'm glad that Daboll's recognized that, and he's getting the most out of this football team.
Yeah, that's the one thing Joe Judge, I mean, I've said this before. The one thing Joe Judge got me on with the opening presser was when he said, don't tell me what these guys can't do, tell me what they can do. Because to me, that was like, oh, this coach knows, he gets it. I'm going to work within my player's skill set. We're going to build a game plan around their strengths. And for whatever reason, it just never translated onto the field for Joe Judge. But with Daboll, it certainly has. Their game plan, it seems like these guys adapted to it. They believe in it and they execute it. And, execution goes a long way in the NFL.
They have ownership in it. Those guys, the coaches take feedback from the players, probably more so than any other coaching staffs. Now, other coaching staffs, they've said, oh yeah, we'll the players will come to us with ideas, but you question how often they incorporated the player ideas into the game plans. This staff does it. It's as clear as day. And I've had many guys tell me that they have done that. And why not? They got to go out there and they've got to play the game. They've got to be the one executing it. So it's a sense of ownership. I keep talking about this, whenever I go on the radio. When you give somebody a sense of ownership, a little piece of ownership, you're going to take more pride and you're going to make sure that that program is going to succeed.
Yeah, I remember when we hired Dable, that was the MO. That's from Buffalo. That's what they said about him. That's what Stephon Diggs said about him. That's what Josh Allen said about him. He said it was they said it was a different game plan each and every week, and the players had as much input as the coaching staff. They loved playing for him because of it, because they had a lot of an input. You could go back, you could see several quotes of former Buffalo Bills saying that. And yeah, he's obviously brought that to the New York Giants. And Saquon Barkley's come out and said it almost feels like, he said he felt like his first 3 or 4 years in the NFL, it felt very professional. It felt very different than from college. And he feels like Dable's brought that college feel to the New York Giants team. It's team friendly, player friendly. And he lets the players have as much say as the coaching staff.
Yeah, and you can see it on the sideline. I mean, you see Dable, good, bad, or indifferent, communicating with the players a lot. It shows them on the sideline. If they do something wrong, he has no problem letting them know they did something wrong. And if they did something good, he's right there encouraging them, telling them good job. So, again, I think the rapport with the players and the coach, that's why they play so hard for this guy. I think, like we talked about it last week, Brian Dable's the type of guy just looks like, hey, I could drink a beer with this guy. He just seems like a regular, everyday guy. And he's very relatable to the fans, obviously, but the players relate to him well, too. And again, it is the intangibles. It is the confidence. It is, we believe in this guy. We want to play for this guy. And they enjoy the game. You can see they enjoy playing football. They enjoy playing for one another. I just look at the play Saquon Barkley made against Baltimore. Saquon Barkley's in a contract year. Saquon Barkley could have used that touchdown to say, hey, look at how many touchdowns I rushed for when it comes to negotiations. And instead of that, and the game would have been over anyway. I doubt Baltimore would have come back, but this guaranteed a victory. So Barkley said, instead of me getting a touchdown and a slight chance of them winning, I'm going to slide down to the 2. We're going to win this game. I'm going to be selfless. I'm playing for the team.
Yep.
That's what I love about these guys. They just do their job. They don't worry about anybody else's job. They're not trying to do too much. They just play within themselves. And it's working really well right now. And let's hope it continues on Sunday.
And just to your point about Dable and how relatable he is, that also extends it to a certain degree to the media. For example, back in the summer, he asked members of the media about music choices, which he has actually incorporated into
I remember he was playing Tony's song, right?
Yeah.
He was playing Tony's
song. He did that for Tony, but he asked members of the media, hey, what songs or artists, do you want to see for, played into? And I've spoken to you, and I think I've mentioned it on the show before. He's so personable. Like if you have something going on, like when I had COVID, for example, and I went down with COVID, the last person I expected to hear from was him or Joe Shane. And I heard from both of them. They both called up to see how I was. And, because they had just heard I had gotten sick, but I don't know if they knew I had COVID. I'm sure they did. But, that just goes to show you the new culture. And I'm not saying that the previous regimes were uncaring or anything like that, but I never, ever got a call. And, even when I was dealing with cancer, I never got a call from anybody saying, hey, how you doing? I mean, I might have gotten a bouquet of flowers when I had surgery, but that was about it. You know what I mean? So let's just little things like that. And if they're doing that for the media, and also if Dable's saying, okay, guys, we're going to give you a better sight line during the open part of practice, you can just imagine what they're doing for the players to just, make things better for them. And in the locker room, it's funny because I didn't like this when Shermer did it. I thought it took away, but this team seems to be managing it. Shermer allowed like ping pong tables and games and all this stuff. And I just thought that the players, they were too into that stuff. And I understand why he did it, because he wanted them to build camaraderie. Well, now with this locker room, you see, cornhole, you've got a ping pong table, you got this little putting green that they have down, and you actually see guys, taking part in this stuff. And there's that camaraderie and competition and stuff. And I don't know, it's just working this time around. It didn't work with Shermer because I guess because, they were losing and they were just so bad, but you could just see and feel what a difference this atmosphere is. And the first thing you see when you walk in that locker room from the media entrance, you see a mannequin that's dressed up in that weekend's uniform from head to toe. It's pretty neat with the pads and everything. And there's be a pro. You see that sign all over the facility, be a pro. And it just, You could tell you're not in Kansas
I
anymore.
don't know if you watch Ted Lasso. It gives me Ted Lasso vibes with what he hangs up in the locker room. He hangs up something similar, but yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And we've talked about not just, I guess, with you guys in terms of the media and the players, also the fans. We talked about that before week 1, how much of an effort they were making to make it more fan friendly when you go to the games. Wink went out of his way to call out the fans, said make noise. So they've included the fans in it. They've included everybody.
Ownership
in the new culture that they're trying to build with the New York Giants.
Pat, here's a question though, Pat. What was your choice for song and artist?
My choice, I like Journey. I think I said Springsteen.
Can't go wrong with that.
You can't go wrong with Journey.
I'm a classic rock fan. Nice. I like classic rock. You know, the 70s, the Eagles, the music group guys.
We know.
I don't want anybody to say, oh my God, Patty likes the Philadelphia. No, the music group. Boston. I enjoy. You know, so classic rock is my thing. I always listen to the 70s stuff. So I was like, you know, whatever. I don't know if they play. I can't remember if they played any of my songs that I've mentioned, but it's all good. You know,
I can see Don't Stop Believing getting played in practice.
Love Journey.
I can see that.
That's like the best closeout song at a bar at 4 a.m. That's the best closeout song.
Yeah, for real. All right, let's get some questions in here. Amazing Guy wants to know, when will Landon Collins and Azeez Ojulari play? Azeez has been declared out. And, you know, let me ask you guys something before we answer the Landon Collins part. Anybody a little concerned with Ojulari at this point? You know, he put on all that muscle. He looks like the Hulk. And is it just me who's wondering if maybe that's ended up hurting him with the calf, or do you think it's just a fluky type of deal?
No, man.
Chris mentioned that before on our show. That listen, I as a guy that, I mean, I'm not Azeez Ojulari, and I'm not claiming to be, but as a guy that's worked out for 11 years, I've certainly had injuries like that, and I have strained my calf, and that hurts. Big time. Like, that's the thing with Kadarius Toney. Like, I didn't realize he had a strain in this hamstring. I didn't know what the hamstring injury is, but when you strain something, that could take weeks. It really depends on the person. But yeah, I think sometimes these guys do put on a lot of muscle, and it's a lot of wear and tear on your tendons and everything else. And you're carrying extra body weight. Even if it is muscle, your bones are still carrying extra weight. So I know Chris has mentioned that before, that maybe he did get a little bit too big, and it's causing some problems with the calf.
And it's been both calves now. It's been both legs.
I don't know. Has it been?
I know it's been two. I know he's had an injury to two.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's been both calves. So yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a coincidence that he looked like the Incredible Hulk coming in this year, and now all of a sudden he's having reoccurring injuries all over his body. And maybe I'm wrong, it's speculation, but that was my thought from before the year started. Once he started having injuries in training camp, and as far as Collins goes, I'm going to assume they're probably going to wait until after the bye.
Well, Collins, I can kind of feel. I talked to Landon this week in the locker room, and I first of all, that smile, man, he is so glad to be back. Let me tell you that, right? Even though he had to wear a Tennessee hat in the day I spoke with him because they lost the bet, you know, Alabama lost to Tennessee,
right?
But no, I talked to Landon and I said to him, so what do they have you doing? And he is working at inside linebacker. He's doing a little bit of will, you know, a little bit in the middle. And you know, in the past, you guys know that Landon's kind of been a little reluctant, I guess, to play linebacker. He considers himself a safety. He has embraced it with this team. Because I said to him, I said, Landon, I said, you've got the talent to do this. I said, do you still don't want to do it? He goes, I'll do anything they ask me to. He says, I am so glad to be back here. And, you know, he was just talking about, you know, some of what he thinks he might be doing down the line. He would love nothing better, I think, to retire as a Giant. That's how happy he is to be back. He never wanted to leave, as you guys know. So yeah, as far as when he might play, I think after the bye too, because there's kind of like that position switch that they have going on, you know, getting him acclimated, number one, to the team and how they do things, but also asking him to take on a specific role in that defense at a position that maybe he didn't play a whole lot prior to. So I think that's why you're not seeing him, you know, right away. So this weekend, Quincy Roche will be one of the practice squad elevations because of the injuries to Ojulari and Zimenez being out. I think Ryder Anderson's going to be the other one. I'm not sure on that, but that's what I'm kind of guessing for that second one. So Landon, you'll probably see after the bye week, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Landon lands on the 53. But this actually brings up another question that somebody asked me for my mailbag: is why haven't they been replacing guys who are injured? Like the Tonys and the guys who have been out for multiple weeks. Salary cap, people. That's what it's all about. It costs money, more money, to bring in a new guy and put the other guy on IR. So, they're getting by where they can. And then they're filling in the holes with standard practice squad elevations, which are far cheaper than having to, bring in new guys. I mean, now if a guy is done for the year, Sterling Shepard's done for the year, that's different. But that's why they've been reluctant to, I think, put guys on IR and just, they're carrying it. So.
Right. Landon Collins, I think also is getting football shape. I think that's a big thing as well. You can lift weights all you want, but there's a difference between being in shape and being in football shape. And I've always thought Landon Collins was better as a box safety myself. I mean, listen, I get critical when on my channel, guys know I get a little critical of the players. They don't play well. And I always, picked on Landon Collins for his coverage skills, but I always felt like the closer he got to the line of scrimmage, the more effective he was. Mm-hmm. And I think to myself, what could he do in Wink's defense with the way Wink blitzes? And I think Landon Collins could definitely be an effective piece in Winks. And then the fact that he's embraced coming back here, again, I think that's a big plus, that he wants to be here. He wants to play for this team. He wants to play for this coaching staff, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get on the field. So obviously that's huge going forward. So obviously wish him nothing but the best. And I do. I think that in Wink's system, I think Landon Collins could be a really good player.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Fabian checks in. How's your Friday going? Going awesome, Fabian. Hope yours is going well. As
Friday,
well.
baby.
Yep, it's Friday. But 2 days until two more rests until we have Giant football.
Yeah, I get to sleep tonight.
You get to because you don't have the Yankees, right?
What's that?
You don't have the Yankees, right?
No Yankees tonight. I mean, I get to sleep in. Like I don't have to get up for work tomorrow, so I can sleep in. It's good.
JC Silva on a music choice says Kiss. Yes, I'm a Kiss fan. You can't see it, but off to the side here, I have a Kiss wall that I'm developing. Yes, I'm a Kiss nerd.
Nice.
Sue me.
Chris, you're muted, I think.
What's that?
Chris is muted. I can't hear him.
Chris, are you on mute? Your microphone's all messed up. Can't hear you.
Yeah, can't hear you,
Chris. I need to unplug and plug back in, but yeah. So anyway, yes, folks, I do like Kiss. My husband makes fun of me for that, but
no,
it is what it is.
You're still muted.
Switch to the crappy mic.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. You're good now.
I don't know what happened. Maybe it came a little loose here. I don't know why it's not working, but we'll do the crappy.
No, you know what happened is you're having the problems that I had when you and I first started doing the shows.
I'm just going to switch back to the good mic again to see if it works.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway,
it went off again.
Yeah,
it went off. I think he's switching.
Yeah.
I think
mine does that once in a while too. It's weird, and then
mine does too. Mine does too.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but I actually have to sit still and not jostle the wires. The wires are actually on my lap, but but I think I switched my cables around, so it's a little bit better. But yeah, we'll hopefully Chris will get that. I'm sure you get that fixed up. So
yeah, I'll figure. We'll just talk.
Oh, you got it. Okay, you got it. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. All right. Did you want to weigh on? We started to jump ahead, and you were on mute, and I think I saw your lips moving. But
no. I was just going to mention because you said you had a Kiss wall. They're the lead singer's from Jersey, right? Pretty sure.
No, I know who you're talking about. No, they're from New York. The guys.
Oh, New York. Why did
they're
I think
from Manhattan.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. This week they've got the first of 2 cruises. And a friend of mine is like, "Oh, you going?" I'm like, "No, I said the bye week is after the cruises." Oh. I said I got to do football. Look, I'm in Giants first, and then all things else second. But yeah, they if they come back around this way, I'll probably hit a concert up. My husband won't go.
Favorite Kiss song?
Oh, Tears Are Falling. Love that song. I used to sing that song.
That's the first one without their makeup, isn't it? Like on MTV.
Yes, but you know what? I used to sing that song to my dog, believe it or not. My dog, my who I don't have anymore, the dog passed away about a year ago. She loved that song for some reason because when I would play it, she would pick up her head and she would look. and I would substitute the lyrics out. Instead of saying tears are falling, I'd say Molly's calling, and so she would just kind of look, and it was adorable. So, so yeah, that's my favorite song. But anyway, let's see. Papa Guzzo, does Nick Gates make the team? Well, Papa Guzzo, he's technically on the team. I think you mean, does he come off a pup? Decision's got to be made by Nick by 4:00 next Tuesday. So here's the thing. I don't believe they've had padded practices because I think Daples kind of cut that back. And I know Nick wanted to test that out. I did talk to Nick this week in the locker room. He's feeling good. He's feeling anxious, but as far as what decision they're going to make, I didn't get a feel for it, and I don't think he has a feel for it. He says, "Look, I'm doing everything I can. I'm rooting for the guy. I make no secret of the fact how much I respect that dude and how much I like him as a person and as a football player. And I hope he makes it back because, Feliciano keeps getting banged up. And now, whenever Feliciano has to come out of the lineup, you got to move Bredesen from left guard to the center. And then you got to put Joshua Zudu in there, who's really probably not ready at this point. Now, if you can get, some relief snaps out of Nick, I say go for it if you can do it. I know that's a long shot considering he hasn't played football in over a year, but that's what I would like to see happen if they, have to sit Feliciano for whatever reason.
Yeah, it'd be good to have. You can never have too much depth on the whole line, so it'd be nice to have Nick Gates. You want to talk about a fighter? That's Nick Gates. He fit right in with this group of guys. No doubt.
He'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Nick Gates
yes.
I'm not going to bank on him playing this year. I hope he does.
I agree.
But I'm not going to bank on it. I hope he does.
I'm with you on that. I am with you on that. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I like Nick, like I said. So do they replace Bredesen with Lemieux or Gates when they're healthy? I don't know if Bredesen's played that horribly that it warrants benching him. I mean,
he was great last week. He was
I don't think he's been that bad.
And I watched Bobby's film breakdown the last 2 weeks. He's gotten better. So I don't think they're going to make that move. I don't think so either. And the line's been playing good the last 2 weeks. So they're progressively getting better. I don't see why they'd want to mess with it unless somebody went down with an injury. Keep it as is.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And sticking with some offensive line questions, what's going on with Lemieux? Will he be back this year? I think they want to bring him back. But see, here's the other thing now. Like I said, now you've got to find a roster spot for him. And I believe they're at 53 now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
I think they're at 53. So who are you going to put down? And I mentioned, substituting and swapping guys out. I think they're going to wait and see. I mean, Lemieux, if I had to take a guess, I think he might be back after the bye. He's walking around well. Earlier in the year, he was in a boot. He's out of the boot now. So, unfortunately, guys, they kick us out of practice after like the first 20 to 30 minutes, during the warm-ups and individual drills. So we don't get to see everything. But I think there is a goal to get him back on the field. And I hope he gets back on the field because he's another guy who plays with that junkyard dog mentality like Gates. And, you can never have too much depth like Chris was saying. So,
what's great is after the bye, be good to get healthy after the bye because that's where all our divisional games are.
Yes.
5 divisional games starting
point.
at Thanksgiving. So we got it. We can get healthy for those 5 games. And they're like 5 games in 6 weeks the way it is. So if we just keep doing what we're doing and be a really successful team. And when we play the Eagles twice, which I always look forward to because I cannot stand the Eagles. They're a good team. So those should be some war.
Dallas and the Eagles.
That's a good point you bring up though, BadDog, because at the beginning of the year, when the schedule came out, the Giants had the option to take the bye after the London game.
Yes, they did.
After 5 weeks, they elected not to do it. My guess would be, now that you mentioned that, I never thought about that. They looked at the schedule and they said, no, we'll take it in the middle of the year, right before we start to go up against our divisional opponents in a few weeks. And let's use that week to get healthy for the home stretch.
That's exactly what happened. You hit it right on the head. The bye was too early after the London game. And you're right. They have to get healthy and get guys back because if they're going to somehow win the division, that's where,
that's where it's going to happen.
That's where it's going to happen
in Dallas. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So that's an excellent point. All right. Some more questions about my musical tapes. Metal. Yes, Metallica.
Yes.
I like them.
AC/DC.
AC/DC, love AC/DC. Oh my
There you
God,
go.
yes.
That's my
Yes.
Jim
Can't go
stuff
wrong with
right there.
AC/DC.
What's that?
Every one of their songs sounds the same, and I love every one of them.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I love AC/DC.
It's like Tom Cruise. Every one of them.
All right. So here's the other question, Pat. Bon Scott or Brian Johnson? AC/DC.
I don't have a preference.
Okay.
I don't have a preference.
Some people usually, they're both great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and then I'll get a question. We'll get back to football. I promise. I'm sure you guys
happens to Chris and I. We got to get off tangents.
I know we get off tangent, but this also lets you know that we're more about football here. Rank my favorite members of KISS. I don't know if you're talking original or current lineup or all together, but my favorites would probably I like, and I'm going to probably catch flack from the hardcore KISS fans.
He's free.
I like Eric Singer, even though he's wearing Peter Criss's makeup. I'm not a big Paul Stanley fan. I am not a big Gene Simmons fan. I can take or leave Tommy Thayer. I love Bruce Kulick. Love Ace Frehley. Peter Criss is okay. I loved Eric Carr. Who am I missing? Vinnie Vincent, I could take or leave. And then I think that's it. I might be missing Mark St. John. I mean, I don't really remember him that much, but anyway. Yes, that's my thing. So anyway, let's see. Let's get back to some football questions here. Gary Gaston, what type of role do you think Wandale will have this week? Probably the same that he's had in the past. Like last week, that slot receiver, crossing patterns and stuff. I mean,
yeah, I think he'll be used more this week. If I had to guess, because he only had 15 snaps this week. I think they'll use him a bit more, but yeah, similar role in the slot. Didn't really see him much in the Wildcat, which I expected. I mean, we'll see that this week. But yeah, slot, that's what he's going to do his damage.
But they got to be careful with that Wildcat though, because it's getting to the point where they're doing it every week, and you got to maybe it's almost like you expect it, So
yep,
got to be careful with that, But
maybe like there's little quick, shovel passes, or maybe an end around or jet sweep, something like that with him. But yeah, lining up in the Wildcat. I think Chris mentioned this last week. We've had success with that, but it seems like every time not every time, but we've had a lot of penalties. Like we line up wrong, we get a false start or something. So, yeah, I like kind of like using that now and again, but I don't want to overuse it because then teams get acclimated to it. You get it on film and they're up and they're lined up here. They're going to do this. So yeah, well, bring it out once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Brick City 101. Have you seen the Wink and Sean O'Hara ride-along interview talking about Kayvon being football smart? Let me tell you something about Kayvon. He is really, really smart, this guy. He's savvy. He's smart. He's got a wonderful personality. The guy he could be hilarious when he wants to be, but I just love the energy he brings to that locker room. And I think I think I've told you guys they put him next to Adoree Jackson. And there's a cool little story there. Did I ever tell you guys the story about why he's next to Adoree Jackson?
You told us about the locker room alignment last week, but I don't think you told us that story.
Adoree Jackson and Kayvon apparently knew each other at some point. I can't remember. They said high school or at a football camp, but they crossed paths long before they became Giant teammates, and they were good friends. So they put them next to each other, and it's just you talk about an odd couple, because Adoree's kind of quiet and kind of I don't want to say buttoned down, but he's quiet and just kind of, whereas Kayvon is very outgoing and, just kind of flashy and whatnot. So it's an odd couple, but they're really good friends, those two.
Talk about a guy that stepped up this year. Adoree Jackson's been awesome. He's been really good. He has been a number one corner. So that's, again, man, it's Wink's system. It's these guys believing in it. But yeah, Adoree's played well. And Kayvon, I was so happy for Thibodeau to get that sack to close it out last week. Cause there's some people that they kind of look at the stats. He doesn't have a sack yet, but I'm like, the guy's constant. He's a disruptor. He's got a ton of energy. He's got a motor that doesn't stop. He's getting a lot of penetration. He's tipping passes. He gets held in almost every play. I swear.
I know. I was screaming. I'm like, what is the guy he was getting mugged.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. But I was so happy when Chris and I were doing the game. I'm like, oh my God, was that Kayvon? Kayvon did it. He stripped it. The only thing he didn't do was recover, and he was close.
I showed Patty our reaction another week. I'm going to show you our reaction this week to the Kayvon sack. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to pull it up for you.
Oh, this is going to be a good one, huh?
You're gonna laugh.
All right.
Yeah, as far as Kayvon goes, yeah, I mean, listen, you knew it was coming. And the other thing I'll say about Kayvon, all you heard come draft time is how Kayvon had this, this bad personality. He was a bad locker room guy.
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
I think he's been so good for this team. I loved him crying too after the game. I thought that was great.
Yes. And that's who he is. He's not, some people say, oh, he's all phony, phony, a flash, whatnot. No, this young man's, he's legit.
Here we go. Here's BadDog and my reaction to the Kayvon fumble. This
is a sense of what we do every Sunday.
All right.
Let me rewind
with the shades. I'm sure
I have to add it, right?
Yeah, we use the shades at halftime. We make adjustments like the coaching staff.
Right.
All right. So
it's all Chris and I. It's got nothing to do with them.
So here we go.
Okay.
24 to go. Jackson takes the snap.
Drop back.
Get the ball. There you go.
Oh my God.
So
and with the sunglasses, you were kidding.
Did you see it? I tried to pull it up. You didn't see it?
They didn't see it? I pulled it up.
You did see it.
I saw it, yeah.
Okay,
I saw it with the sunglasses, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, good.
Oh my gosh, you guys are hilarious.
Yeah. I wear the same jersey too. I wore McKinney the first
I love it.
I think Chris wore Saquon, then they lost. Then Chris went with the old Eli. I went with the Jason. I've had that Jason Seward jersey since 1997. So I always joke around and say that jersey's older than half the people that watch my channel. I think it's 25 years old. But Seward was one of my favorite guys. So yeah.
But we've been having a lot of fun this year doing the streams.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's fun anyway, but it's a lot more fun when you're winning.
It sure is.
Especially the way we are winning, because every game comes down to the wire. Right. It's tight, it's emotional.
Tension,
it's been incredible.
All right, guys, I have to take
this week where it doesn't. Can we just win by like 2 scores?
That would be nice. I would take that. I mean, I'm tired of having to switch my lead around when I write, but that's all good. All right, guys, listen, we got to take a quick commercial break. I got about a minute 23 ad here, and we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. Get your questions in. We'll start answering some more of them once we come out of the break. Hey, Giant fans, BetOnline is your number one source for football betting information this season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game, both college and NFL. And BetOnline doesn't stop there. It's your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB playoffs, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the games start. Giant fans, thank you for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL key predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football. Plus, you get betting advice from the field's leading experts at BetOnline. Follow NFL key predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there with us. Got to make sure we accommodate our sponsors because they make this show possible. Without them,
know all about it.
Know all about it. I know some of you are like, I don't want. I see Papa Goats are saying, I don't like breaks, Papa. Sorry, they're kind of necessary, but anyway. So guys, let's talk more about this game this weekend. We started to talk a little bit about the matchups. Let's talk about the tackles. The Giants' 2 offensive tackles versus those pass rushers. How do you kind of weigh that one? Who has the advantage, do you think?
I think Andrew Thomas always has the advantage. We saw what he did against Micah Parsons. So whoever they put on his side, whether it be Trayvon Walker or whether it be Josh Allen, I think he'll handle his own. On the Evan Neal side, I'd probably give Jacksonville a slight edge, but Evan Neal's been getting better. I'll say that. Evan Neal had his best game as a pro last week, so I don't think he's going to go out there and get embarrassed. Let's put it that way. So I think they'll be able to hold their own against this tackle duo. I'm not that worried about that aspect of the defense. It's more their run defense that worries me.
Yeah, I agree. I think Evan Neal's gotten better. I mean, I think he learned. Again, we talk about resolve with the Giants, and I've talked about it with Daniel Jones after he threw the bad interception against Tennessee, and pretty much since then he's been a lot better handling the football. Hasn't really turned it over. He turned it over at the end of the half when he's trying to throw a Hail Mary, and then he threw an interception at the end of the game at Dallas. But Evan Neal had that really bad game against Dallas. He looked really bad on national television. DeMarcus Lawrence had a huge game. But since then, he's obviously improved. He didn't let it get him down. He's worked to improve. And again, I think that he's getting better week in and week out as he gets used to NFL speed and the NFL, defensive ends and the playbook and the blocking scheme and everything else. So, yeah, I think, like Chris said, I think it's more the run defense I'm worried about because that's our strength, and they've obviously done a really good job against the run this year. So, I don't really know how we're going to attack them offensively. But, the
one thing I will say, I noticed before the stream because I looked at the injury report, Jaguars are missing their starting cornerback this week.
Actually, I was just gonna ask you guys about that because their defensive secondary, with the exception, I think, of one or two guys,
they have one
guy, their safety, if I'm not mistaken, they had some problems last week. Shaq Griffin, I think, was toasted, if I'm not mistaken.
He's the guy that's out this week, but yeah. They gave up almost 400 yards through the air last week to, I think it was
it was Matt Ryan in the Colts, right?
Yeah, Matt Ryan. I think
they gave up the big play at the end of the game, too, that cost them the game.
Yeah. I think this could be a game Daniel Jones
can throw for over 200 yards.
270. Couple of scores. Darius Slayton gets involved. I could see this being a game where they have to rely a bit more on the pass because you're talking about a team that is giving up 3.6 yards a carry. That's third best in the league. And I mean they held what's his name? The running back on the Colts, Stewart, right? No, what's his name? Taylor. Jonathan Taylor. They held that Colts offense in 2 games combined to 99 yards rushing. Like this running defense is legit. So I'm not saying they're going to abandon the run, but I think they're going to have to rely a bit more on Daniel Jones' arm this week.
Yeah, they came out throwing against Baltimore last week, so they were more aggressive throwing the football. And it seems like the Giants have kind of done that a lot this year where they've thrown it more in the first half and they've used Saquon Barkley in the second half. But they might have to pass it in order to open up the run. And again, maybe this is why, Wan'Dale Robinson has a bigger role this week because of that. So it'll be interesting, but Darius Slayton, like Chris said, I think he could have a big game too. But yeah, this is a game Daniel Jones they may ask him to open up the passing game a little bit more because Jacksonville's got such a stout run defense.
Right. Now, point here by Papa Guzzo about the weather going to be in the 70s, not too humid, but it hasn't been in the 70s really up here in the Northeast. It's starting to get.
This weekend it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, Oh, good.
Like
I'm getting outside if that's the case. But the point being is how much is that's going to be a factor? Because that's something obviously a coach can't simulate when you're practicing. All he can do is basically tell the guys hydrate, make sure you're in good condition, all that stuff. But how much do you guys put in? How much stock? It's not going to rain. But still, it's a temperature swing. So, do you put any stock in that? Does that concern you in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so. It's October up here. It's not like it's December where it's 25 degrees up here. It might be 60, 62. I don't really know. I know it's always a little warmer down in North Jersey than it is in upstate New York. But no, I don't think the 70s is too bad. Like if you're talking 80s and humid, it might be because those guys really aren't conditioned for that. But at the same time, with the way the Giants have controlled the ball, the time possession, if we're able to do that and beat them down, it could wear them out a little bit earlier. So obviously the line of scrimmage is going to be a big key. It's a big key in every game. But if we can do what we've been doing and control the ball, convert third downs and hold on to the ball, I think it definitely could work in our advantage, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Independent Outsider wants to know, if Giants win, will you play your Daniel Jones draft pick reaction coming full circle? Not on this show. I'm sorry.
I don't think we can use that language.
Yeah. Independent.
we-
Well, I'll save that. I'll save that. If Daniel Jones, here's what I'll say, Independent. If Daniel Jones ends up signing a contract extension with the New York Giants, I will make a video reacting to that. And
I did that before the draft this year. I reacted to my Daniel Jones video. Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I've always joked around with Chris about this, Pat.
I've seen that video, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of people saw that one.
Guys,
I'm on the floor. Not my best moment. But I always joke around and say, if Daniel Jones ever won a Super Bowl, they always have the America's game for the Super Bowl teams. I'm like, guaranteed that's there. But they'll have to beep out some parts.
Yes.
But
maybe
they'll show the draft reaction.
But you know what, guys? That's what makes you guys so good at what you do, because that's raw emotion. That's not manufactured.
No.
We
can't manufacture that.
No, you can't manufacture. I have to be more buttoned down because of
during the fumble recovery. Somebody in my comments said, "Chris, your voice had 8 different octaves. You can't act that out when you recover a fumble. That's just emotion, like you said. That's what comes out when fans watch their team. That they love.
Because of my role and what I'm paid to do, I have to kind of pull some of that in. But let me tell you guys, ask my husband sometime. If I ever get him on the show, maybe I will. Maybe I'll get my brother on the show during the bye week, because that would be kind of fun. My brother's a Chiefs fan, and oh God, I could just imagine the conversation he and I would have. But anyway, I do get emotional. Sometimes it's like I do get vested in it. I know I'm not supposed to, but 10 years of lousy football.
Yeah.
It was dragging me down. And there were days where I would get up, I would go to work, and I'd be like, why am I bothering? It's going to be the same story. It's going to be the same thing. I'm so tired of this.
That way. You weren't alone in that.
No, exactly. And now that they're winning, it's like you get giddy, and I find myself, and we're not allowed to cheer in the press box, and I don't cheer, but sometimes I'll be like, like I'll do this, or I'll make faces, So,
at the end of the day, you're a fan. You can't help it.
I'm a fan of the game, and plus I grew up. For me, I grew up watching Giant football with my father. It's one of my fondest memories as a kid, growing up and watching him, and he would get really animated. I could tell he used to have to swallow a lot of cuss words when I was in the room, but yeah.
Especially that was in the 70s. I can imagine.
Yeah, it was the fumble. I remember the fumble. I think I told you guys that story when he came home and he was furious. I told you that.
The miracle at the Meadowlands?
The miracle at the Meadowlands. Yep. He came home.
Thank God I wasn't after that.
Oh my gosh.
I was 2, so I didn't see that. But yeah, the old just fall on the ball, Pasarczyk, nope, hand it off to Zonka, fumble, Herman Edwards, and that's
well, I think the offensive coordinator, Bob Gibson, I think, was the offensive coordinator back in those days. So everybody in the huddle was telling Pasarczyk, don't run the ball, just fall on it. They were telling him basically they were telling him go against what Gibson had called. And I think weeks before that, something had happened where Pasarczyk didn't do what Gibson wanted, and Gibson threatened to cut him. So there was a backstory to that. I know I wrote about it in the book, so I don't remember all the details, but it's in the book that I wrote. So that's why Pasarczyk was like, I'm not messing with this. Coach is calling for this. I'm going to do it. And, I remember my father coming home. He was furious. And, I might have told the story before on this show, but I used to write all my father's letters for him because I was the writer in the family. So if he wanted a letter written, he'd say, write a letter to so-and-so about this. I'd do it. He sat down and he wrote a letter to Wellington Mara, the owner who was alive at the time. And I remember, being a little kid saying, Dad, I write the letters. He says, no, I'm writing this letter. And I later found out why, because it was filled with a bunch of language. Yes.
Wasn't it? I've heard, I don't know this for sure, but wasn't that kind of the game that made them take George Young as the GM, and the next year they drafted Carl Sims, right?
Exactly. That actually set them on the new course, because the head coach resigned, Gibson was fired, Wellington Mara at that point had been the GM. They didn't really have a true GM.
Right.
They had Andy Robstelli, I think, was like the director of football operations, whatever that title is. But Wellington had final say on everything. And Tim Mara, the nephew at the time, he had enough. The people were burning tickets in the parking lot. You remember the plane with the 15 years of lousy football. We've had enough. So that after that season, everybody, they cleaned house. They brought in George Young, and the only way they were able to get George Young is they had to give him complete control over the football operations. George Young, here's something you guys probably don't know. George Young has been the only GM to date that has had 100% control over everything. No questions asked. Ernie, of course, he was a close second, but all the other major moves with contracts and everything like that all had to be bounced off of ownership. Whereas George would just say, hey, I'm going and I'm giving Lawrence Taylor this contract. End of discussion. So
good. I'm glad he did that.
Yeah. That's the way it should be, though. I that's really and I do think Mara hopefully has started to learn his lesson that he needs to stay a little, more out of.
Yeah. I mean, you saw what happened at the ownership meeting, right? I mean, reporters, the NFL owners meeting was this week, and reporters wanted comments, and John didn't even talk during the summer. Usually he talks, at training camp. He didn't talk. Basically, he's taking a step back and he's saying, okay, Joe and Brian are my guys. And how many times have I said this on the show? I've said, whenever Joe Shane is talking, there's Brian Dable sitting right next to them. So you got one voice, same message. You don't have a case where coach said this and the GM said that. That's how it should be, guys.
Right. So our 1978, or this generation 1978 is 2021. It's the back-to-back quarterback sneaks. Like, to me, that is the low point in my lifetime, because I started watching the Giants in 1984, so they were just getting really good when I started watching them. But I haven't seen this bad football. Like, my dad grew up with the 70s, and from 19. Because I always remember, I tell a story a lot. My dad was 32, God rest his soul, when they won the Super Bowl in 1986, and I remember he was crying. He told me, because I was 10. He says, "Kid, enjoy this, because you don't know if you're ever going to see it again," because he had never seen one. He was 2 when they won in 1956. Mm-hmm. So, and then luckily for us, we got to see 4 together. But that 78 was like the low point, that miracle of the Meadowlands. And I swear the back-to-back quarterback sneaks and the free medium soda, like that was those two things. And not just for ticket holders, but the person on the account. So if you had 4 tickets, you got 1 soda for 4 people.
And they didn't even give him a medium soda. It was like one of those sodas they give you, like when you go to the movie theaters and you ask for like a complimentary cup. It was like,
with that back-to-back, that, I mean, in retrospect, if I ever have to write a new chapter in the book, not only was that just mind-blowing, but the message it sent,
right,
not just to the players but to the fans. That was basically the coaches saying, we give up. And I'm trying to remember who the assistant coach was. Somebody was telling me a story that one of the assistant coach, it was Rob Sale, the offensive line coach, when he heard the call come through on the headset, he said, we're going to get fired tomorrow if you do this, right? And they went and did it. And apparently that was Joe's way of saying, look, I don't have confidence that this offense is going to be able to pick up a yard. Right. And that went down to the players. And, it's funny because when people were saying, Joe's going to survive and everything like that, I said, I don't know how, between that and the rant that he went on, in which it sounded like he was trying to convince himself more than anything that they were heading in the right direction. Once you doubt your players, and he put that on display.
He got himself fired.
He got himself fired. He really did. I mean,
I'm gonna tell you what,
you got to go. That's and the funny thing is didn't he criticize Doug Peterson the year before?
Yes, he did. He said we wouldn't do that.
Yes, and what did he do? He in his own way, he compromised the integrity of the game by saying, we're going to go for.
I don't think our record got him fired because we were 4-7. Daniel Jones goes down. And at that point, you couldn't expect them to win another game. That team with Mike Glennon at quarterback, with
Jake Fromm
at quarterback, like it didn't matter who was the coach. Dable could have been the coach. He wasn't winning games with Jake Fromm. No. So I don't think it was the losses, the 4 wins that got him fired, because we probably would have won 6 or 7 had Jones stayed healthy, and it was his second year. It was the way that he handled the media. When he, like you said, when he had the outburst, and it seemed as if it was pre-planned, and then the spectacle with the QB sneak. And listen, he got dealt a bad hand, but I'm glad he got fired, because if he wouldn't have gotten fired, Joe Shane would not be our GM. He's not taking his
Right.
job.
Yeah.
But that's what I equate to. To me, in my lifetime, that is the low point of Giant football. Those
That was
back-to-back
bad.
quarterback streaks. And speaking of Dougie P, we owe you one, Doug. We owe you one. We know the players know that this may be a new GM and a new.
But Doug, if
I
he
know
doesn't do
someone
that,
brought
if
it
he
to me
doesn't
that
do that, then
if
Joe Judge, if the Giants go to the playoffs, and maybe things don't happen the way they don't
agree.
unfold. So
somebody brought that to my attention. But you know what, Pat? Any little added motivation. Any little
I know, but
motivation helps.
The point spread enough should be motivation.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah,
I mean, up more. It's 3.5 now. I saw.
Yeah, that's motivation, and don't think that the players aren't.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I don't think Brian. See, sometimes I always say that the worst thing a team can do is believe their own hype. But the good thing about good. I mean, I guess it's good, bad. I don't know. Nobody's hyping up the Giants. Nobody's giving them any. Oh, it's just a matter of time before they fall off. They can't sustain this. They can't do this. They can't keep doing it and keep doubting them. Because the last 3 Super Bowls we won, they're not going. They're not beating San Francisco. They're not beating Buffalo. They're not beating Tampa Bay. They're not beating Dallas. They're not beating Green Bay. They're not beating Green Bay a second time. They're not beating the Patriots either time. And every time they prove them wrong. So keep doubting, because as long as the Giants believe in themselves, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if I believe in Chris, you, the chat, the fans in the stadium, the media. As long as they believe, that's the most important thing.
Hey, look, I saw Mark Sanchez beat Tom Brady in the playoffs in Foxborough with a much inferior Jets team. Yep. If that team could go to the AFC Championship game with Mark Sanchez as their quarterback, this New York Giants team could do damage in the playoffs. I'm not saying they will, but they could. When you have an identity like that Jets team did, similar to ours, heavy run first approach, rely on your defense.
This is the Dable effect. The Dable effect. He's given, and his coaching staff too. You got to extend it to the coaching staff. They have given us reason to believe because they are getting the most out of these guys. I mean, think about it. If you were to put most of these guys on other rosters, would they necessarily be starters? Maybe a few of them would. Thomas would probably. Barkley definitely would.
Our wide receivers probably wouldn't be.
Receivers wouldn't. Would the tight ends be tight end ones? I'm not so sure about that. These coaches.
Daniel Bellinger's
Bellinger.
Good.
But he's up and coming, Chris.
He is up and coming.
So that's 50-50 there. But the point being is these coaches are drawing every last bit out of these guys. It's no magic formula, that they're using. They're getting the most out of them. They're doing what all the coaching staffs between Coughlin and Dable said they were going to do and weren't able to do, which is put these guys in the best position to be successful. Every coach says that. Not every coach figures out how to do it.
Most don't. We got a special coach here.
Yeah,
yes,
we got a good coaching staff in general. I think Wink has been a huge addition.
And I had concerns. I'm not going to lie. With Wink's personality, I was like, okay, you got Dable, who's an alpha male, and Wink, who's an alpha male. How are they going to mesh? They have meshed together beautifully, Well,
who else I think were a couple alpha males that meshed really well together was Parcells and Belichick.
Yep.
I'm not calling these guys
Belichick, I don't think back in the day, Belichick back in the day wasn't as much of an alpha male as he is now. He was actually somebody who had to work his way up the rung, if you will.
But he became the defensive coordinator, though. I felt like
I mean, but he started off. I think he was like a quality control coach at some point. Maybe even something, a little step below that. I can't remember the exact sequence, but I remember was it George Martin that told me for the book? I think it was Harry Carson. Maybe told me that. It was Harry because Harry's like, who is this guy? He hadn't coached and they had questions about him. And because he was such a brilliant football mind and he showed it time and time again, the defensive players are like, okay, maybe this guy does know what the heck he's talking about. So he had to work his way up. But yeah, the point is this coaching staff that they have today, man, what a group. What a special group. Yeah. So glad to have them for sure. All right, JJM. Christian McCaffrey went for a second and a few picks. Do you think we can get DJ Moore with a second round pick? Do we really want to make that trade? All right, here's the thing. When I say, do we want to make that trade? This team does need a receiver. I'm not going to dispute that, but can they maybe get a receiver in the draft and not have to spend
And it's a lot of money for more next year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because look, I'm always looking at the cap, and let me see if I can pull up DJ Moore's contract.
He's like 20 million.
I know.
Well, no, actually, I want to see, because I don't think it's a full. I don't think it's a full 20 million. Let's see. I want over the cap.
This year it's only 6.1.
Yeah, next year it's a lot. Though.
All right, so yeah, his base salary next year is 19.96. His 2024 hit is 15.85, and he has a roster bonus due in 2025 of $1 million. So that would bring him up to 15.85. Look, if you're going to make a trade, I wouldn't object to DJ Moore, but you've got to keep in mind the Giants will probably need to do something with Barkley if he continues playing the way he's been playing. They'll probably need to do something with Jones if he continues to play the way he's playing. And then remember, Shane has said that he believes in locking up young talent. So, you got Dexter, even though Dexter's option year has been picked up, you're going to have McKinney's eligible for renegotiation after this year. You got Andrew Thomas. So you've got guys that you've got to, plan for. So does it make more sense to go in the draft and get your receiver? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think they'll listen. I think they'll look potentially to make a move at the deadline, but I don't think it'll be for a player like that. I think it would be for like a younger receiver who's still on
Terrace Marshall's on the same
like
team.
That. More from the Jets, like you heard from like a player like that who's not making a whole lot of money. That's young.
Mims from the Jets.
Mims from the Jets, like something like that. The more I think about it, the more I don't think they're going to be leaning going towards bringing in a $20 million wide receiver.
Yeah,
we have one of those already.
Yes, exactly, and we all know how that played out. But let me ask you guys, since we're on the topic of trades, do you think the Giants will make any moves at the trade deadline? I don't think they will because of the cap situation. I would be surprised. But there's been talk that, maybe the Saints will rekindle their interest in Darius Slayton. Although I don't know that I would move Slayton at this point.
Think we can afford to move.
Here's my thing with Slayton. How in the world could you trade the guy right now? We have no wide receiver. And the other thing I'll say is if Slayton plays well, like let's say Slayton plays well the rest of the year. If teams already have interest in him, if they're willing to give up a 4th or 5th round pick for him, and he plays well, you might get a comp pick for him. Somebody might be willing to give him $8-9 million a year. You may end up getting a comp pick for the guy if you just keep him on the roster this year and he puts up numbers.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, worst case scenario, if you were to trade him, what are you going to get? A 6th round pick? And don't forget, the Giants are projected to get an extra 6th and 7th in terms of comp picks. So they're going to have 9 picks if those projections come to fruition. And Shane has shown that he's not afraid to move up or move down to pick up more picks. So I'm not so sure.
Just thinking about it after I said that, that's even more of a reason to keep guys in-house and not bring guys in from the outside. Because when you keep your players, that doesn't go against the comp formula. If we spent $20 million to retain Dexter Lawrence or $20 million to retain Daniel Jones, we could let Darius Slayton sign for $8 million. You get a 5th, 6th round comp pick. But if you offset that by bringing in a player from outside your organization for $8, $9, $10 million, you don't get that comp pick anymore.
Right. And that's Shane's philosophy. That's what Buffalo did. Buffalo, I don't think was very heavily
They traded for Diggs, but not
but that's a trade. A trade doesn't count towards the comp pick, though.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
So that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, Shane's got a totally different way of doing things. I mean, with the Giants, not only did they screw up their cap this year, but they screwed up their comp picks by bringing in all those free agents that they brought in. And it's like, you're a team that has so many holes. Why, the shortcut doesn't work. And that's one of the many reasons why the shortcut doesn't work, of just bringing in free agent after free agent after free agent.
Yeah, build through the draft. You don't build through free agency.
Absolutely.
And I think that would get him. I think Gettleman knew he was on the hot seat. So he's just like, listen, if this is my last year, I'm going down swinging. I'm going to bring in everybody that I can. I'm going to try to win so I can keep my job. And if I don't, well, it's not my problem anymore. So the fact that the Giants have been able to do what they've done in such a bad situation, they won 22 games in 5 years coming into this year. And then they had no flexibility in the cap whatsoever. So that's why I look forward to what Shane can do with more flexibility in the cap in his own scouts when they're scouting for the Giants, and the Giants needs this year for the draft. That's why I think the Giants have a really bright future, and I'm excited. This has happened a lot quicker than I thought it would. I thought they'd get better throughout
a lot
the year.
faster than we all thought it would.
Yeah, they got off to a really good start. Didn't think that would happen. So
yeah,
I'm very encouraged by what they've done so far, and I think it's only going to get better.
And once that cap situation and that cap, it won't be 100% healthy next year, but it's going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
And Shane himself has said it. He's come right out and said, look, not in so many words, but he's been hamstrung.
Mm-hmm.
So give the guy an opportunity with a healthy cap, a full slate of draft picks, and watch how much he's going to improve this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's encouraging.
It's gonna happen quick. It's gonna happen real quick.
It is. I mean, I could see if the Giants don't make the playoffs this year, and we'll talk about that coming up about the P word next year. If everything falls into place, they could be. We could see maybe, I don't want to say a Cincinnati type of situation, but certainly a team that's going to be relevant.
I'm not going to shy away from that as a possibility.
Okay, I mean, anything can happen. It can happen
fast in the NFL when you get a great.
It
happens fast.
If everybody's, and the only reason why I'm hedging here is because the injury bug. That's a mystery they've got to solve.
Yeah.
Let's be real here, guys. I mean, if that injury bug wipes out, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and I'm knocking on wood here that this doesn't happen. If it wipes out key guys, then it doesn't matter.
Yep,
it really doesn't matter. So that's a big mystery. And at the end of the year, I'm kind of curious because I think Dable alluded to, we're going to talk about it at some point. I'd be curious to know what those conversations are going to be like. Is it going to be about the turf? Is it going to be about the training program? I'd like to know, and I think I will. I think that's a question I'm going to put to Shane: is what discussions are you going to have about this injury situation, and what do you feel you can do to improve it? Because last I checked, the Giants were like the 4th most injured team in the league this year.
Doesn't surprise me.
Which is
we have lost We've lost our 2 best receivers. We've lost one of our best pass rushers. We've lost our cornerback. I mean, they've definitely, they've lost a number of linemen. So, yeah, I mean, that's what's even more amazing is we've lost like our 2 best receivers, one of our best pass rushers, and we've been thin in the secondary, and somehow they're still winning against Baltimore, Green Bay, and Tennessee. So it's just, like I said, it's encouraging. Get healthy after the bye, get ready for these divisional games because those are going to be wars. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to I always look forward to those games because I don't like our division rivals.
I don't think you're alone. And by the way, I'm kind of shocked at what's going on in Washington with Ron Rivera. I mean, Ron Rivera, I always liked Ron. I mean, I'm not a
He's
big
starting
fan.
to lose it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, given the pressures and the other stuff that's going on with that external stuff, I'm sure, I'm sure Ron's probably sitting there going, what have I done? What have I got myself into here? Whereas the Eagles, they're stable. Dallas is pretty stable, even though, I'm curious to see. I think it looks like Dak's going to play this weekend.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Yep.
I mean, Cooper Rush lost last week, so it's like, okay, here's your excuse to shoehorn Dak back into the situation. But, then what are they going to do with Zeke Elliott, who I'd be surprised if Zeke's on the Dallas Cowboys after this year. I'd be stunned if they keep him.
Yeah, Pollard's is a good running back. I was talking to one of the Cowboy content creators Wednesday. We did a roundtable with me and 3 guys from the NFC East, and they were saying that Dak probably could have played against Philadelphia, but they didn't want to
upset.
They didn't want to push him, and Cooper Rush hadn't lost, and you kind of really aren't showing them your hand if they don't play Dak. So maybe they wanted to use that for an advantage later in the year. They were just kind of like icing on the cake. They were playing with house money, so they allowed Cooper Rush to play. It probably would have been a different game with Dak. Who knows? The Eagles' game plan might have been different if they were playing Dak. So you never know, but. Those are 2 really good teams. I mean, there is no question about it. Washington's definitely struggled, but any division game is really tough. And
I think we got a chance to beat Dallas, though. I really do next time.
I do. I agree with you.
I want another crack at those guys.
I'm gonna tell you, Evan Neal's a different player right now. Yeah. He's not gonna. They're not getting that same Evan Neal that they got week 3 or whatever it was.
And maybe we'll get Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay. Well, Galladay played in that game, but maybe we'll get Kadarius Toney out there as well. And that gives us a whole
different game. Tony would be my guess would be maybe after the bye. I mean, he's getting better from what I hear, but hamstrings, and you guys know he talked this past week, so he's frustrated, the kid. I see a lot of Giant fans hating on him. He's frustrated, and I get it, but I believe, and some of you are going to probably say that I probably believe in the tooth fairy too, but I believe the kid's really, trying his best to get out there. A lot of people say,
I believe that.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, he's more concerned about his rap career. Nah, I don't get that impression.
No, I believe that. I question whether or not the guy's going to be able to stay healthy.
That I agree with you on that. But listen, they put him right between his lockers, right between Daniels and Sterling Shepard's, and Sterling's been around, and will
probably
be around.
Not a good idea with Tony's injury history between those two. They get hurt all the time too. That's
probably no, but the point is it was strategically done, because you're putting them next to two guys who work their butts off.
Yeah. Right.
Sterling, of course, despite the fact that he gets hurt, he knows what it takes to be successful in the league, because he's out there.
He's Shepard when we get rid of him, because he's one of my favorite players on this team.
I love Shep. I absolutely love him. And Wandale, I talked to Wandale about Shep, and he can't, he sat there. He says, it wasn't for Shep. He says, I don't think I'd be as far along as I am. So very humbled. They're very humbled with the praise that they give to the veterans.
The more I think about it, the more I think Shep might be coming back.
I hope. I really hope
he
so.
loves being a Giant.
He does. He really does. And he's in a good place. Other than the injury, he's in a good place in his life. And I've said it before on the show. To see, I think I was the first Giant reporter to interview Shep after he was drafted, and to see the growth and the maturity in him, it's just been wonderful. It really is. I can't explain it, but when you see these guys grow up and go from being these college kids to becoming husbands and fathers and veterans and leaders on the team, and Shep never got the captain's the C on his chest, but as far for what it's worth, he was a captain in that locker room. Always has been, and he still is. He's up there, waving the towel and cheering on the guys and giving them encouragement and working with guys in the film room and everything. Doing what he can within the rules, of being on IR. And you could tell he's not ready to go away. And he even said it to me. He says, "I want to leave on my terms, not because my body's telling me."
Right.
So
yeah, I'm a Sooner fan. So when they drafted Shepard, I was extremely excited, because I was like, man, this kid, he can play inside, outside. He had such great hands at Oklahoma, and I thought that was a great draft. I was not happy with the Eli Apple pick, and that I can tell you.
No, I wasn't. I don't think
you think my Daniel Jones reaction was something. I go, I was worse when they drafted Apple. I just wasn't on YouTube. I have a video of me ranting the day after that I was so heated because I wanted Leonard Floyd. The Bears traded.
That was when they screwed it. Yeah, but everybody knew what they wanted to do.
So I was like, the worst keeping secrets. I was so mad when they took Eli, but then when they took Shepard, I was extremely excited. So,
yes, and I knew they were going to take Shepard because I had gotten a tip that's who they were looking for, and I remember predicting it, and everybody's like, they're not going to take Shepard. He's too small. He's too this. And when they took him, they were like, oh, you were right. And I'm like, I told Shep the story, and he goes, you must have known something. I said, I did. I got a tip that you were going to be the guy. And I was glad, because I always thought Shep was kind of underrated coming out of school. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad he's a Giant. And I really hope he's got an avoidable year next year. So I don't know, maybe they rip it up and they bring him back on a 1-year veteran minimum. I don't know, but I'd like to see him back, because he's just such a valuable asset in that locker room. And think about it. They're going to jettison Galladay probably after this year. Tony's still kind of young. They don't really have that veteran voice.
Right. I think he'd come back.
Shepard could fill that voice.
I could see him coming back for like next to nothing, just to be a Giant. Like
I could see it too.
I could see him coming back next year. I really can.
Yeah, because is anybody really going to, coming off the ACL, is anybody going to, or Achilles rather, is anybody going to give him a big contract? Probably not.
No.
So
I'd be surprised.
There is a good possibility, and we'll have a lot more cap space next year. So
yeah,
that is definitely something they can afford if they choose to keep him around.
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys, I got to run one more commercial, and then that's it. We'll take your questions, so make sure you put them in the comments section. We'll be right back after this. Hey, Giant fans. Home burglaries and intruder break-ins are unfortunately on the rise. Don't let the bad guys win. Build up your best defense with a customized system from SimpliSafe. Used and trusted by thousands of people, SimpliSafe is cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. SimpliSafe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and will even dispatch the appropriate first responders to your residence, even if you're not home. So don't risk your family's safety. Put SimpliSafe's 24/7 professional monitoring and advanced response technology to work for you today. Visit simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL to customize your system at a special listener discount of 20% off. Plus, get your first month of interactive monitoring free. That's SimpliSafe, simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL for your customized 20% off discounted security system and free month of interactive monitoring. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. Tainah, and the dog.
Well done with that ad. You did a great job.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Took me a couple times to get it right.
Yes.
I'm telling you, I read off of a script and I have it right in front of me. And I still stumble on it. So
you're improving every week, though, like Evan Neal. So by the end of the year, you're going to be an all-pro.
I hope so. I mean, as long as the advertisers are happy, I mean, I haven't gotten any complaints that I know of, so I must be doing all right. But appreciate everybody's patience while we get the ads in. All right, so let's see what kind of questions we got in here. We had another. Brandon likes my Tainah and the dog. maybe that's going to be my opening catchphrase, because my husband's always like, you got to come up with your own catchphrase. He says, you can't use Chris's stand up, because he sits there. He hears me through my husband works above me.
He probably hates it.
He yells down, or he'll text down to me, you I'm like, thanks, sweetheart. I love you too, So,
yeah, of course.
But listen.
I didn't mean you. I meant he probably hates it when I say it.
No, he likes when you say it. He's heard it.
Oh, okay.
He laughs. He's like, you got to come up with a catchphrase, but don't use Chris's, because Chris has got the trademark on that.
Yeah.
I said, I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong. Dog, you don't have a trademark saying.
Nah, when I have it, like when I do a video, when I say it's just a peace. I have an outro. I don't really have an intro. I have an outro. So yeah, that's about it.
I got it. All right. Brandon says my stand up is not. I know, Brandon. Look, Chris is the original. I'll come up with something. I mean, if you guys have a suggestion, I'm trying to be more, outgoing and whatnot. I know sometimes I'm buttoned down, but look, I like having fun on these shows. It's Friday night. It's a live stream. We talk Giant football. What about, loosen up, right?
Hi, loosen up. We'll get you there.
Well, I'll get there. I mean, I got two of the best, on the pod with me. Tommy G's doing stuff over for Giants Country, and check out other content.
I think I'm gonna have him on the channel tomorrow night. He was supposed to come on last Saturday, but he couldn't. I think I'm gonna.
You're gonna love Tommy's awesome. Tommy's awesome. I'm so glad. I am so glad Tommy's getting more comfortable in his role. His stuff, by the way, is on the Giants Country channel. If any of you want to check it out, it's Tommy G. He's also on Twitter. I think it's Tommy G 105. So highly recommend checking Tommy G out. So, all right, let's talk. Let's get back some of these questions here. Alex Dragowski, can we all just agree that Kadarius Toney is a first round bust? I'm not ready to call him a bust yet. I know he hasn't been on the field. He's only played in 12 games. I think what's going to happen with Kadarius Toney is they're going to carry him next year. Next year is going to be a make or break season for him. Mm-hmm. At that point, if it's more of the same, then yes, we'll call him a bust. But I can't call him a bust right now. Not until the injury situation is resolved and some other stuff, but I don't know. I can't go there. What about you guys? Do you think he's headed in that direction, or are you? I think
it's too early to call him a bust, but it's trending that way.
Yeah.
That's my opinion of it. I wouldn't call him a bust quite yet. He hasn't even been a year and a half in the league. But it's trending that way. That doesn't, maybe he'll revitalize his career and maybe he'll be able to stay. If he stays healthy, I don't think he'll be a bust. I just have significant doubt that he's going to be able to stay healthy.
Yeah, I think frustrating is the word for it because you can see that he is talented. And that's what's frustrating is you would love him just to get a run of 8 games in a row, 9, just to see what he can do so he can get acclimated to the playbook, so he can get in a rhythm, so he can practice every week, so he can get in that, like I said, that football rhythm of being out there every week and getting all these snaps and getting used to the playbook and getting used to the players and everything else. It's just, I think the injuries, it stinks. What happened to Saquon? It was the same thing. Saquon is obviously one of the most talented players on the face of the planet, and he went through his injury phases too. And it took him takes a lot of players, except for maybe Adrian Peterson, a year to come back from that. I don't know how Adrian Peterson's guys. It's the whole reason I'm a Sooner fan, but that guy's a freak of nature. I mean, he had 2 torn ACLs, and the guy almost broke the rushing record. So usually it takes a player. I think it's more mental than physical. It's in the back of their head, and then after you have it, you've healed it for a couple of years. You see Saquon finishing his runs and that leg drive and everything. That why they call him Saquads. That guy's a beast. So it's frustrating with Kadarius Toney. I mean, I'm frustrated too because I want to see what he can do. We've seen the flashes of that big playability, that ability to make defenders miss in the open field, that flashiness, that explosive. He's the guy that's explosive. He's your home run hitter in that receiving core. So it's, I think, frustrating. So I'm not ready to call him a bust.
Well, let me go back to the past here. I'm going to throw out another name at you who kind of started off where this guy was constantly getting injured and people wondered if he was ever going to amount to anything. And he ended up only, cracking into the Giants record books. Amani Toomer.
Oh,
remember Amani Toomer, folks?
Yes.
When he first came out, he was getting knocked around and banged up and everything like that. And people were like, and I think Toomer, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was a 2nd-round pick.
He was.
And people were like, oh God, the Giants swung and missed on this guy. And what happened? He rededicated himself, hit the weight room, really studied his craft, and Toomer went on to become one of the, the better Giant receivers in franchise history.
The best Giant receiver in franchise history.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Pretty much.
Absolutely. So Toomer, when he first came out, I remember he was very immature. I covered him. This goes to show you how far back I go. I covered him when he first came out. He was immature. He was almost afraid of his own shadow. And, he was lacking confidence. And I'll never forget the time he suffered a concussion in a game. And his brother was at the game. And his brother brought him, had to walk him out of the locker room. And Amani's sitting there, his head's down, and he looks all dejected. And I don't know who sat down and had a conversation with him, but Amani, over the years, developed into a solid receiver. Now, can Kadarius Toney develop it in that way? Let's hope so, folks, because this kid, I think, has more talent than Toomer did back in that day.
I could agree with that. Just in terms of like raw physical talent, I could agree with that.
I know when Beckham first got here, he had a hamstring his rookie season. He didn't play till like week 3 or week 4, and he didn't start. But as soon as he got on the field, I mean, you knew he was special. He dealt with, I remember his rookie season, he dealt with hamstring problems. And sometimes he didn't have serious injuries, but he also had quad injuries. And
he had a lot of serious injuries as his career.
He did. Once he left the Giants, he had some serious.
Yeah. Even while he was with the Giants, he missed a lot of time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But it was more hamstrings, quads, that type of thing. But when I look at Kadarius Toney, I see similar skill set to maybe not as Beckham was the most talented receiver I've ever think the Giants have had as far as just like physical talent. Right. But I do think Kadarius Toney brings some of that where you would hit him on a 7-yard slant and he could go 70 yards and take it to the house. That's the one thing we're really missing on this team is that receiver that can make a difference. Like these guys are doing their job and they've made big catches, but we haven't really seen that guy that really scares the defense into saying, we got to watch out for this guy because at any moment he could catch it and go all the way.
Yeah.
That's what if Kadarius Toney can get healthy, that is we don't need to trade for a receiver. We have that guy if he can just stay healthy. I feel like if we can get a healthy Kadarius Toney, that's our trade. That's the guy we need. So let's hope that whatever they're doing, he gets his hamstrings ready. I know he mentioned he might have come back a little too quickly, and hamstrings are tricky. So hopefully he gets healthy, he gets 100%, and he doesn't deal with this the rest of the season.
And also, for those of you who want to give up on him, he's still on his rookie deal. It's still kind of affordable to have him. So that's why I think
there's no reason to give up on him yet.
There's no reason to give up. And this year, Shane and Dable are evaluating what they have so they can go out and say, okay, this is what we need to get for next year or for the future. They haven't really been able to fully evaluate this kid. So, I'm going to put this comment up from Patrick Sisam, but Tony is an aspiring rapper. Yeah, Patrick, I get it. And I understand the concern, but you know how many guys in that locker room have side interests that they want to kind of develop?
BadDog, you know this as well as me. Is that better than me? You're a Yankee fan. Bernie Williams and Paul O'Neill had like their own band in the locker room, right? Yep. It wasn't like Bernie a guitarist. Yeah,
Bernie's is a jazz musician. He goes out on tour and stuff.
And he did it while he was a Yankee.
Yep.
Nobody cared because they won and he played well. At the end of the day, guys are entitled to have hobbies. This whole thing about the rapper to me is blown way out of proportion.
I also think it's because in the era we play, social media is huge. Like when Bernie played, that wasn't a big deal. 1996, the internet was prehistoric. There was no Instagram. There was no Twitter. There was no camera on a cell phone. There was no people were not recording you. And it was way different, 25 years ago than it is now. So obviously everybody has a voice in what these players are doing. And I don't know. I listen. I give Kadarius Toney a hard time. I give everybody a hard time. That's part of my personality. Sometimes it's sarcasm. Sometimes it's legitimately like I'm ticked off, but I know. And again, with Kadarius Toney, with me, it's just frustration. I just want to see what he can do because I know that talent's there. And it's been extremely frustrating that he can't get on the field. Again, I never knew what the hamstring injury was. Now, when you said it was a strain, those are way different than a pull. They just are. And again,
that's what they're telling us. I mean, for all we know, it could be a pull, but they say strain.
Well, strain is a big difference.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can only go by what they're telling us because, I mean, unless the kid comes right out and says, oh, I've got a pull or a tear or whatever.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, guys have outside interests, Dexter Lawrence, I know, wants to get a fashion line going, as does Xavier McKinney. Is anybody complaining about that? No. So, I agree with Tainah.
I don't get the rap. Who cares if the guy raps on
it becomes a problem when, he's got to promote the album and now suddenly he's got to miss football for whatever the reason. That's when different. It becomes a problem.
If he's not showing
and
up,
he's not there yet.
Of it, that's the different story. Right. But as long as he's showing up and practicing and working hard I don't care if he's a rapper.
Yeah, and I think the reason why he might have missed the start of the off-season program, remember, he was coming off of off-season surgery. So I wonder if that didn't factor into the equation and maybe, was he in the building or what, or did they say, okay, you just came off of off-season surgery, so heal up and then we'll get you in. So we don't know the full story with him. I'm not ready to give up on the kid yet, but is he trending towards being a bust? Yes, but I'm not ready to put him there just yet. All right. Hate Sam has been posting this. So let's get to this. What are the odds we get DJ Moore now that he's for sure getting moved? Sam, while I think the trade would make sense, I don't think the Giants are going to go for him for the reasons we were talking about. If Toney can be healthy, that you've got the draft. We talked about the salary cap, what it would cost to get DJ Moore, not just this year, but years down the line. I wouldn't object to it. I don't think it's going to happen.
And I wouldn't say he's for sure getting moved. He's still really young. He's like 24, 25 years old. The Panthers, even though they're probably drafting a quarterback next year, they're going to need somebody to throw the ball to for that quarterback. So I don't know. He may get moved. Obviously, they're showing a willingness to trade a lot of their players, but just because they traded McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson doesn't mean that they may not identify DJ Moore as a guy that they want to push forward with.
Yeah.
They might not have a fire sale. They might just be getting rid of some of the guys they don't plan on bringing back. So who?
But one thing got from McCaffrey was a slam dunk.
Yeah.
The guy with his injury history at the running back position, they got a second, third, and fourth round pick in the same draft.
Yeah.
And like a future 5th and 6th or something like that. They got a slam dunk.
I think they got 2 future seconds.
I think they had another second as well. Yep.
Yeah.
They got a fortune.
They did.
They got a real nice haul there. Mike Gorga, why isn't LPG fan of the year every year? I don't know. I often wondered about that. He should be.
Vote on that.
I don't understand why he doesn't get the, credit where it's due. I mean, the guy bends over backwards to help other fans.
Yeah.
He's constantly raising money for charity. I mean, and he's a super nice guy. I mean, although I give him crap because I said to him, dude, he's on Cameo. For those of you who don't know, Cameo is a service that you can book a celebrity or or a content creator, whatever. I'm not on Cameo. I don't plan to get on Cameo, but you can basically book somebody to give you a shout out for your birthday, anniversary, or whatever. He's on Cameo, and I was busting him earlier in the year. I said, dude, my birthday came and went and I didn't get a shout out from you. What the heck? So he's like, I didn't know, PT, you didn't tell me your birthday was coming up. So I said, well, I'm telling you now. So
I got one from Vic DiBattista. My wife got me one for Father's Day from Vic DiBattista. Who's a comedian from New Jersey. I think he lives in New Jersey. But when people first saw Vic DiBattista, they're like, oh, BadDog, I found your uncle. Because if there's a guy that is like me, it is him. But yeah, so I know the Cameo very well.
Yes, I've gotten a couple of cameos too from members of KISS, courtesy of my hubby. So nice. they're actually pretty cool. I think, and Otis Anderson has a similar service called Signed. I don't know if you guys I had Otis on the show back, I think it was in May, where not only do you get a personalized video, but you also get a signed memorabilia. Like for my birthday, again, my husband got me a signed ball from Otis Anderson, and I edited a video, and it's so cool. So check that out as well. Unsolicited little plug there for the service.
Never forget OJ in the old Super Bowl and 3rd down and 1, the little DeMarc Kelso as he tried.
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah.
OJ is a tough old dog. That guy, man, that was the gritty '90 Giants. I love it. So
he was so surprised that he got inducted into the Giants Ring of Honor, and I said to him, OJ, I said, why are you surprised given what you accomplished here?
MVP, right? I mean,
well, because I think maybe he associated himself more so with the Cardinals or whatever, but or a lot of people, not him, but a lot of people were like, oh, Cardinals, so he should go in the Cardinals Ring of Honor, or whatever they call their Ring of Honor. But yeah, Otis, tremendous player.
Listen, when you do it here, Keith Hernandez is kind of similar to him, where he only played for the Mets for like 4 or 5 years, but he's known as a Met.
Well, Reggie Jackson,
Mike Piazza's another one.
4 years.
Yeah.
I was glad I got the Ring of Honor was Leonard Marshall, because I think I always say Leonard Marshall like the most underrated Giant. Big Leonard, was so good, and he just because he played with Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson and Carl Banks, so you kind of get overlooked when you play with those guys, but he was good. And everybody, I mean, anybody my age or older remembers when he just absolutely killed Joe Montana in the 1990 NFC Championship game. But Leonard was a great player, and I'm glad for him that he got in the Ring of Honor, because
if you guys get a chance, and this goes for everybody, I had Leonard on the show before the Ring of Honor, the week of leading up to the Ring of Honor ceremony. And I asked him, I said, Leonard, what's it going to mean to you? What's going to be your reaction when your name is finally called? The man broke down in tears. It's, first time I've ever made a footballer cry. And it was intentional. Wow. But check that interview out. It's really good. It's on my channel. It would have been week 3, the Dallas weeks leading up to Dallas, but it was such a good, because Leonard was just so humbled and so happy because he wanted that honor for years. And every year, like when I would see people around the Giants, I'd be like, why isn't Leonard in the Ring of Honor?
He had like 83 and a half sacks. It was, he was such a good player for those championship teams. So I was happy for him, because he was always one of my favorites.
Big Moo says, let's live in the present and enjoy. Hey, Big Moo, the Giants stress the past too. So, I mean, the past builds up on the future. So nice to dip back into the future. I know you want to talk about, the current Giants. We're all happy about it, but these are some of the good memories that are coming back, so.
Right. Yeah. Because these are when you're a little older and you've experienced when they were a really good team, it starts to
Yep,
remind you of the good times. Because like
exactly.
you
And
said, Pat, the last 10 years have been
I've
not
been
very good
garbage.
here.
They've been
And
garbage. Let's
it's
call it what
been
they
tough.
are.
So, but that's for me anyway, as a fan. I mean, I love the history of the sports. I love the
Yeah.
history of the
And it's
Giants, the
important.
Yankees, and baseball, like baseball in general, or football. I'm just a historian. I like the history of the
Mm-hmm.
game,
Yeah.
especially my franchises. And, I like to know the great players and the great coaches that came through my favorite team. And like I said, growing up in the 80s, I obviously got to see Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson and Carl Banks, Leonard Moore. I got to see the amazing Giants defenses and really good teams. And like I said, 1990 was my favorite Giants team because they were underdogs all year. They weren't, pretty. They just, like you said, they took you in the back alley and they beat you down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this team kind of reminds me of.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. All right. Jake McNeely, when does Tony come back? After the bye, although it's funny, when I tweeted that out the other day, Chris Biziano of Giant Insider said, "You mean January 8th?" I guess it was just the day after the season ends. I said, well, I added
the day after the season in February.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Right.
I said that is technically after the bye. So, I wasn't that far off. But yeah, I mean, hamstrings are tricky, but I have a feeling they're going to try and start them up after the bye week because, you get that week off of rest. You don't have to, I'm sure those guys that are injured are going to come in and they're going to get treatment. But I think that's going to be, you want to try and get these guys back, like we were saying earlier, for the slate of NFC East games that are coming up. That's key.
Strength. Yep.
That's key. So that's what I think. All right, M2626M, how many road games do you attend? Basically just Philly. I used to go to all of them, but you jump around to different. Now I'm with Fan Nation and LockedOn, so I don't really go out on the road. I mean, if it's a playoff game or if it's a game that's really like, going to decide the division or something like that I'll go out on. But, these games like this, it's kind of like, I bypass. So I cover them. I can still cover them like I would if I were at the Giant games, but, I don't really hit the road as much as I used to because A, like I said, I'm getting older, and B, publications just don't want to send you out on the road as much. And a lot of publications are like that. So unfortunately,
well, there you go. You said you go to Philly, and you said
Philly,
you go to,
and I live to talk about it. By the way,
Week 18. Let's hope that game is. I want that game.
Washington. If I have to go to
in Philly, or is that game?
The last game's in Philly.
The last game is in Philly. So if that game is for the division, I will be there.
Oh, wow.
I will take the train out to Philly, and I will do that trip.
That game's for the division.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We owe them one
too. That would be nice. That would be nice. So
you'll never catch me in Philly because I probably wouldn't get out of there alive. So I'll stay right where I am.
Oh, I mean, I could tell you guys some stories about my time in Philly, but I'm sure people are going to be like, stick with the present. Don't talk about Philly. But yeah, even I've gotten kind of, I don't want to say abused, but
yeah,
let's just say I've gotten my share of stuff. If you have a jersey license plate.
Philly and New York fans, I feel like we're very similar, and that's why we bang heads so much. I feel like the fan bases are very similar.
Yeah.
One another.
I mean, they're passionate, but I think the New York fans are a little bit more polite. The Philly fans, I mean,
yeah, maybe a little.
They can be
New York stuff too.
Yeah.
Go to Yankee Stadium.
I've never had a New York fan, be rude to me. Dallas, I had beer thrown at me once. I'll never forget that. And in Philly, I mean, I thought I don't want to say that I was going to get mugged, but I had a couple guys I think who had a little too much to drink, got a little too close into my space, and I was like, "Oh crap! No, we don't want this." So that was the fastest I moved out of a huddle as that I can remember. So yeah, Philly, their fans are definitely passionate. So,
yes.
All right. I want to get back to the Jaguar game. What other things are we overlooking here, guys, that we need to be talking about that you think are going to, be deciding factors in this game?
I mean, for me, Trevor Lawrence is. I love Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence has a bright future. I think he's got incredible skills, but he's still a young quarterback, and I think Wink needs to, bring some blitzes and try to confuse Trevor Lawrence, maybe some blitzes or some coverages or something, and try to force some turnovers. Because if we have a hard time running the ball against Jacksonville, we're gonna need to win the turnover battle and get a short field, maybe so we don't have to drive the length of the field. If we could get a couple of turnovers and get the ball in plus territory and capitalize early against a team, I feel like we have a good chance. So I really. Again, I don't know what we're going to do offensively. I think we're going to have to find a way to run the ball one way or the other, whether that's with Barkley or maybe it's with Jones. I don't know how healthy Jones's ankle is, but if he can run a little bit more, than he did, last week he ran once, I think, in the first half, and then they used him a little bit more in the second half. But I think this is really going to come down to our defense. I feel like Wink's game plan is going to have a lot to do with our success in Jacksonville.
Yeah. I'll throw out I've started to notice it get better over the last couple of weeks. Our special teams.
Yes.
The return this past week was huge because that was touchdown in the first half, getting into midfield at the 50-yard line. And I saw an interview with McGahee. I think that's his name, right? The
T-Mac,
the special teams coordinator.
Yep.
And he talked about how the special teams is getting better week over week over week over week. And for a team like the Giants, where you're looking for the hidden yardage, you're looking for ways to create scoring opportunities, especially going up against a team like Jacksonville that you think is going to be really strong against our biggest strength on offense. I could see special teams playing a big factor in this game. Maybe you spring a kick return back to the 50, the 40, create short field position, and hopefully they build off what we've seen the last couple of weeks because it has been very apparent. It's starting to get better week over week.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's see. Brandon Swan. Let's get some score predictions. Brandon, you're going to really do this to me. Can I guess I'm going to have to take one for the team,
for the record, I was pretty close last week.
Yes, you were.
I was pretty close.
Pretty good.
I'm going to be honest, Brandon. I've been back and forth on this game, and much like Patricia, I'm very superstitious.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I want to give you guys my fair and honest prediction every week. Last week, my honest prediction was we were going to lose by a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
My honest prediction is we're going to win this week. I don't want to do it because when I pick us to lose, we win. But I'm telling you guys my honest prediction. I think it's going to be really close. I am worried about this game. I'm not lying about that. Like, this team is better than 2-4. I'm telling you right now, they have talent on both sides of the ball, and Trevor Lawrence is a damn good quarterback. I think he's going to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, probably by as soon as next year. Like, he's that talented. And he's the type of quarterback that could win a game by himself. So by no means am I going to be shocked if the Giants lose this game. I'm not going to jump out of a window if the Giants lose this game. Jacksonville is a good football team. They're better than their record indicates. But I just think a young quarterback in a brand new offense going up against a blitz-happy scheme like Wink, what he's been able to show, what he's been able to do against some veteran quarterbacks already this year with Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, I think he's going to be able to create some turnovers against Trevor Lawrence. And I think the Giants will narrowly escape Jacksonville with a win. I'm going like 23-21. I think it's going to be really close, but I think the Giants just eke one out.
Yeah, if you want my honest opinion, I think the Giants squeak one out as well. But if you want me to take one for the team, which I'm happy to do, I'm going to go with Jacksonville. No, seriously, guys, I feel the Giants can win this game. If I have to give you a score, I'm going to say 24-21. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think that's, I think it's going to come down to a field goal. Whoever has the ball last. Gosh, I hope I didn't just jinx the team, because if I did, I know a lot of you are going to be on this channel next week, and you're going to be giving me crap for it, which will be well deserved because I broke with the tradition here. But I got to be honest with you. I mean, that's
this is a tough team, though. This is not the Bears.
It is a tough team, absolutely.
This is not the Panthers.
This is a tough one.
This is the Titans for me. They're equal to the Titans. This is a good team. I don't care what their record says. They're a tough team.
Listen, the Giants are, every year I'm like, they're going to have a letdown game. There's just one game where it's like, they probably shouldn't have. That's a game they could have won. They should have got out there with a victory. That's not this week. The Giants are going to win this game by a touchdown, 24-17, because they're going to have the ball last, and they're going to go down. They're going to get a touchdown about 2 minutes ago. And then old friend Evan Ingram is going to tip a ball up in the air, and McKinney's going to pick it off, and we're going to end the game. 24-17 Giants.
You're calling for Daniel Jones to have his 5th game.
Yeah, why not?
Wow.
What's the record? I got to look this up. What is the record? Because I feel like he's on pace to break it right now.
He's got a ways to go
Eli in
before
2011 had a lot of. Well, no, he had like 15 fourth quarter touchdowns. I don't know how many comebacks. Yeah,
I think he had.
We can look that up. I think we can get that info. Let me see if I can find it.
I know he set the record for like fourth quarter touchdown passes in 2011, which he should have won MVP in 2011. But
let me see if I can find Eli.
Yeah. I do though. I think the Giants can get out of here with a touchdown victory. Again, not like they're going to be way ahead, but I think like they'll score that touchdown at the end of the game and win by a touchdown.
I like it.
I know Eli, he had, here we go. Game-winning drives, career 37. Looks like he had 37 career game-winning drives. 2011, he had 6.
Yeah.
And he was
4.
Yeah, so that was what Eli had. So yeah, Daniel Jones. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, people always ask, what does Daniel Jones have to show? What kind of numbers does he need? And I keep saying it's not about the passing yards. It's not about necessarily how many completions he has. It's about decision making. It's about, can he load this team on his shoulders and carry them across the finish line? And he's been able to do that. The decisions have been solid.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt you. I found the stat.
Okay.
Most game-winning drives in a single season. He's already got 4, by the way.
Yep.
Daniel Jones already has 4. Okay, and we're only 6 games into the season. 8. That's the career record. 8 game-winning drives was by Matt Stafford.
Right.
In 2016. Before that, there's like a bunch with 7.
Right. Eli had the 6, like we talked about.
6, yeah. He's up there too, but the most ever is 8 in a single season.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's something I didn't think Daniel Jones had in him.
I didn't think. You know what? Again, Daniel, this offense, and I go back to the point I made earlier. He's had a hand in this offense. It's like every week with Kafka. What do you like to run? What do you think about this? And they compromise. And when you have ownership, Garrett, he did it to a degree, but not like what Kafka's doing.
Right.
And it's made a difference for these players. I keep saying that. And that's one of the underrated things about this coaching staff is that they go and they solicit feedback from the players. And, good for Daniel, because Daniel took a lot of heat, a lot of garbage from people.
He's still taking it.
I gave him garbage. I'm not going to lie. It was tough on Daniel Jones.
I did too. I began to wonder. I'm like, is he ever going? Is he Dave Brown 2.0?
Right.
And I said, listen, I want to see him make a believer out of me, and he's doing it.
Yeah.
He's doing it, and he's doing it without really, a bona fide number 1 receiver, which is amazing.
I think he's doing it without a number 2 receiver too, to be honest.
Which is just amazing.
His number 1 receiver is Bellinger right now. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean the tight ends are basically carrying the passing game, them and Saquon, carrying the running game, and this, imagine how much better Daniel's going to be when that offensive line really solidifies, and that offensive line isn't that rebuild isn't done just yet because I don't think Feliciano is going to be the center long term, but when they get in a number 1 receiver, or if they ever get Tony back healthy, can you just imagine what this offense is going to look like?
Yeah.
A lot better.
It'll be a lot better.
You're
scoring more points.
This line's going to get a lot better too.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think this Giants offense is going to be much better than some people may realize by year's end.
Yep, absolutely. David L brings up a good point, and this has been one of my criticisms, if you will. The Giants have gotten off to a slow start in the first half.
Yes, they have.
Nobody, and this is my take on it. You tell me if you agree or disagree with it. I almost feel like Kafka is kind of feeling out the defense.
Exactly what it is. In my opinion.
And then he's adjusting based on what they're showing him. So he's being more reactive than proactive. I mean, what do you think?
I said it. I think I said it during my stream with BadDog, and I definitely said it in my post-game stream that the feeling I get with this Giants team, specifically on the offensive end, and the defense too, with the adjustments we make on both sides of the ball, it's like a boxing match. Like it's almost like Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman, the Rumble in the Jungle with the rope-a-dope. Like the first like 5-6 rounds, the Giants, they're taking some jabs. They're just letting the other team tire themselves out, and they're seeing what they bring to the game, and then they react to it, and then they go on their run after they can make adjustments at halftime. That seems to have been the game plan from the start. It's why the Giants always defer the kick. They say, we'll make our adjustments at halftime. We'll start with the ball. We'll go on a run there. And I think that's been by design. I think that's been intentional, that they're not trying to show the opposing team everything in the first half so they could come out and surprise them in the second.
But is that sustainable?
That's a good question.
Well, I don't know. I guess we're going to find out. But it would be nice for us to get off to a good start and finish good as well, because then we wouldn't have to sweat out every victory. But I think that's a testament to our coaching staff, because we haven't seen a lot of adjustments. It seemed like every year we would do something, especially with Shermer. I felt like we would find something that was
He would adjust. He would just make things worse in the second.
Yeah, it seemed like they would go away from what was working. Yeah. And this team says, okay, this doesn't work. Let's try this. They do it till they find what works, and then they stick with it. So I love them to get off to better starts, but it's the way you finish. And this team finishes strong. So, I don't know if it's sustainable or not, but let's ride it as long as we can.
Yeah. And you talk about finish. I mean, how many times have we seen the Giants get off to a decent start and then they fizzled at the end?
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I would rather they get off to a slow start and come on and finish strong and wear the other team down than, jump out to a 21-0 lead. And now all of a sudden, guess what? That lead evaporates because they, something changed, or they gave the other side an opportunity to make adjustments. And I do think, like Chris says, I do think it's intentional. And if it is, I go back to, what was it, a couple weeks ago when Daniel had the ankle and he wasn't running in the first half.
Yep.
And I mentioned on the show, I said, I wonder if that was done intentionally so that, to lull Green Bay into sleep, into thinking, okay, we don't have to worry about Daniel, so let's focus on Saquon. And then, boom, what happens in the second half? Daniel starts running wild on them.
Well, I'll tell you what, with prior Giants teams, I remember because we stream every game, and I remember BadDog, we used to say it with Garrett and Judge. The first drive, they would always look like a pretty good offense, and we'd be like, they came out with a good game plan, and then it was like they had nothing planned after that.
Right. The script was over.
They're like, no, we're not showing them the full deck of cards. We're going to make our adjustments throughout the game, and we'll start to hit them with the counter punches once we really see what they're coming with from the defensive side of the football. With Judge, we actually look competent to start games a lot of times on offense, the first drive or two, and then everything went sideways.
Patricia mentioned last week. She said it seemed like the last coaching regime didn't have a plan B. Yeah. This coaching staff has a plan B, C, D, and if this happens, we got this. If this happens, they always have a backup plan. They're always prepared. So again, I think that goes to a lot of the adjustments that they make. Okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. This isn't working. Well, if this doesn't work, we'll do this. And it certainly worked all year long. So listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And here's something else for what it's worth. I can't validate this for sure. The Giants have a lot of coaches sitting up in the box this year, more than I can remember, because I see them coming out of the box, the press box, when they go down for halftime and when they come up and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure they have more coaches in the box this year. And why is that significant? Because you got more eyes in the sky. And I firmly believe that you can have a better vantage point when you're upstairs in the press box as opposed to being downstairs on the field. So I thought that was kind of interesting with how this coaching staff is set up. You guys know that Kafka is up in the box because he's the same reason. You can see all 22 when you're up in the box, whereas when you're on the field, you're just looking straight ahead, and it's not the same vantage point.
And the other thing is, I feel like they're setting a trend, and not just them, but a lot of teams around the league this year. They're adjusting to defenses. So defenses over the last 4 or 5 years have adjusted to the offenses. They've gotten smaller because they need more speed on the field, because you have quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray and guys that could do things right out of the backfield and super fast wide receivers. So by doing that, you get smaller linebackers. But what the Giants have done, because they're going up against teams with these smaller linebackers and multiple DBs, they're coming out with an old school mindset. They're coming out with 2 tight end sets, and they're saying, we're going to knock you on your ass, and we're going to establish the ground game, because they're taking advantage of how these defenses today are built. And they're almost playing in an old school way but it works against the modern day defense.
Yep. Chris and I would applaud when they would come out in an offset I formation for the last couple of years, because we're like, well, how come we never line up in two tights and two backs or whatever, the I formation? So when they would line up in the I formation, hey, there we go.
Yeah.
So, it's a great point, Chris. I mean,
Excellent
smaller,
point. Is right.
Knock them on their ass. You're not going to outspeed them, so outpower them.
Yep, absolutely. They're taking advantage of the opponent's size and the weaknesses, and that's what good coaching does. You're going to hear me say it time and again: coaching. And Dable, he's got it. They understand. Whereas yet these other coaching staffs, I don't know if it's just they were so set in their ways that they just didn't want to change, or what the story was. Because think about it, up in Buffalo, the running game, now granted they didn't have a guy like Saquon Barkley up there, but a lot of people are like, oh, Dable is quick to get away from the run and go more towards the pass. That hasn't been the case down here. And granted, it's because of the injuries, but
I don't think their tight ends are used a lot.
They're not.
Offense. And in this, obviously they are, because Daniel Bellinger, he has 3 touchdowns. I don't know if he has 3 receiving. I know he has 1 rushing touchdown, which I still think was supposed to be a pass to Daniel Jones, and he's like, that's not open. I'm taking it myself. But he's obviously been a big part in the pass game. He reminds me a lot of Kevin Boss. That's who I think of when I think of Daniel Bellinger. Again, not a guy. He's not Evan Ingram. He's not running a 4.4. He's not an athletic guy, but he's a tight end. Your tight ends are supposed to block, and they should be able to catch the ball. And that's what he's done. I miss the days.
He's more athletic than Kevin Boss.
Right. I'm just saying, but he's that type of guy. He's not an explosive guy, but he's effective. So maybe like a Kyle Rudolph in his prime. Maybe he can be something like that, where really good. I miss the days of the tight end down the seam. But I grew up with Bavaro, so there was a lot of tight ends out of the seam. But Martellus Bennett was a tight end, Shockey. So it's good to see the tight end back in the passing game. It's good to know you have a guy with reliable hands that can catch a 7-yard pass on 3rd and 5. So
and guys who can block.
Right.
Evan Ingram, it used to drive me nuts. They'd have him do inline blocking against defensive ends that were like 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier than him. And I never understood that. I'm like, why? It's not
the position. Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Fitting guys, putting a square peg into a round hole. This coaching staff doesn't do that. It's like, okay, you can't block well. All right, we're going to have you do something else. Or you can't run this type of route. We're going to have you run a different type of route. And they fit it within the context of what they want to do, the grand picture. And that's so important. And
the
prior
best
coaches,
in my opinion, you look at what Bill Belichick did throughout his entire career. The best coaches don't go with the trend. They set the trend. Yep. And Bill Belichick, well, he was with the Patriots. You go back. He was kind of the first guy that really went with the running back by committee approach. He was kind of the first guy that went with the 2 tight ends in terms of being utilized in the passing game with Gronkowski and obviously Aaron Hernandez. And he was always ahead of the curve. He was kind of the first guy that really heavily utilized the slot receiver with Wes Welker, the way in which they did in the short passing game. And you're seeing Dable do the same thing. Dable is going to the strengths of this team, and it's old school, but maybe he's setting a trend. Maybe the NFL is starting to shift back to old school. Maybe new school.
Maybe. I mean, it wouldn't, why not set it? It is a copycat league, right?
Yes, it is.
Blue City Empire Sports, do you guys believe that John Mara is finally not getting involved? Blue City, he actually is involved as the owner. I mean, look, his thing was Joe Shane's running the show. All right. But I think as a courtesy, everything, it's Joe just says, hey, John, this is what we're going to do, or this is what we're thinking of doing. And John has said in the past, after Shane was hired, after Dable was hired again, he said it. He says, unless it's something really goes against my grain, and it would have to be something really, really bad, he's basically letting Shane run the show. But I think as a courtesy, they all talk because, John's not, John's there in the office every day. He comes out to practice every day. So to say he's not involved, that wouldn't be accurate, but he's not, telling.
He's not as hands-on as he's been.
Yeah, he's taking a step back.
Yeah, it's like, you go back to the McAdoo when Eli Manning and they were like, oh, let's see what, John had suggested, oh, shouldn't we see what we have in these other guys? Well, when the owner mentions,
I don't know if he's completely out of it, but I think he's
I don't think he is.
He's definitely made a major adjustment.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it.
I think last year, I don't know if it was when they fired Joe Judge, but I remember at the end of the year's press conference, I felt like Mara at that point knew that I know he felt bad. He's talked about letting down the fans. He didn't put Daniel Jones in a good situation. And I think finally, after 5 years of really bad football, maybe it resounded with him that, this is really bad. We have to do something to change. I got to find a guy that I can believe in that's going to make all these moves. And we brought in 21st century football minds.
Yep.
Which,
by the way, was an older guy. We have guys that know the modern game. It's funny because they have modern football minds, or they're going with an old school approach.
Well, I think they're going with the old school approach because that's the best approach for this current roster.
Right.
And what does it remind you of, guys? George Young, remember?
Yep. Yep.
Wellington Mara finally realized, okay, I've got to take a step back and let my general manager and my head coach run this team.
Yeah.
History's repeating itself, and in a good way.
Hey, listen, I joke around. I was born in 76. The Giants started 0-9. They finished 3-11. They were terrible from 76 to 80. I was 5 years old. They made the playoffs in 1981. They won in 86. My son was born in 2017. It was the first time the Giants ever lost 13 games in their franchise history. They've been terrible since 2017. Well, guess what? My son turned 5 in April. So it's time for them to make the damn playoffs because history is supposed to repeat itself. Now let's hope they make a Super Bowl and win one before he turns 10. But we're headed in that direction because history is repeating itself.
And in a good way.
That's right.
In a good way. And it's about that because, look, every year it's like when a coach, when Shermer would say it or McAdoo would say it or Joe Judge would say it, he'd say, oh, we're headed in the right direction. And I'd be like, tell that to the fans who for the last decade or so have watched the same poor quality of football. Fans don't want to hear that. They want to see it. Don't tell me what's going on behind the scenes. Yep. Show me what's going on behind the scenes by putting the product out on the field and transferring what's allegedly happening behind the scenes onto the field.
Right.
And if you notice, and if you notice, Dable says, oh, we just try to get better. We are getting better a little bit each week. We're trying to get better because he knows it's not perfect. Yeah. Will it ever be perfect? Probably not, because there's no such thing as perfect in this world. But they're pushing to get as close to perfect as they can.
And that's what I like, because you should always want to improve. You should never settle. As soon as you settle, that's when everything starts to fall apart. You should always work on getting, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. When you do something for a living, you should try to get better at doing it. You're in the gym, you should try to get better at doing it. You're a track runner, you should try to get better at doing it. You should always push yourself to be better. So I'm glad. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the Giants, I hope they don't have that letdown game, but I feel like this coaching staff won't allow it, because it's not like they're going to go, oh, we're 5-1. We're playing with house money. Nobody expected us to be here. We can kind of settle down a little bit. No, I think that this coaching staff's like, okay, we got to improve on this. We got to do this. We got to get better at this. We got to get better at this. And every week they work on getting better. And that's why you're seeing them get better every week. And I expect it to continue this week as well. That's why I think we're going to win the game.
And if they do lose, I guarantee you this team isn't going to sit there and fall apart, because I feel that this team, the way this coaching staff has worked with this team, and, I keep mentioning this, Dable references Dr. Laney Lawrence, who's their sports psychologist, and other people inside the organization, and giving them credit. They're set up to withstand adversity, I think, a lot better than maybe teams in the past.
Listen.
Oh, they lost to Dallas and they've responded very well.
Exactly.
And the way they lost to Dallas, like they got manhandled on both sides of the ball, and that team regrouped. They got back in that locker room. They got back to practice, and they
look at Evan Neal, man. Evan Neal has gotten better ever since that game. That was a bad game for him, and just the result.
Flush it. And that's the motto in the locker room. Whether you win or lose, whether you have a career game or a game that you want to forget, flush it and move on, because you can't go back and change what happened in the past. But what you can change is what's going to happen in the future. Yeah. That's what they're stressing, and every single one of those guys has bought into it. It's the old cornerback mentality. Forget about the last play, go on to the next one. And it has made such a difference. And and everybody preaches it. It's great to hear these guys all sing the same song.
That's one of my favorite sayings. You can't move forward by looking back. You can't. So, you don't forget, but because you want to improve on it, but at the same time, you can't dwell on the past because like you said, Pat, you can't change it. So just try to get better, learn from your mistakes and get better. This team's doing that.
They absolutely are. So, all right. I know you guys got to get ready for your show at 10 o'clock. That's right, folks. These two crazies are going to go and they're going to do it again at 10 o'clock. They're going to do it again at 10 o'clock, for another 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah,
I love it. I love the dedication you guys have. And meanwhile, I'm going to go and I'm going to get some stuff ready for Giants country. So everybody, appreciate you tuning in as always to Locked On Giants Live. We had fun. I know I had fun tonight. I hope you guys had fun, and I hope we can do it again next week. Because with the trade deadline's coming up, and I know a lot of people have been asking about trades and stuff. So we'll see what happens throughout the course of the week. Seattle, and then of course we've got the bye after that. So still,
I'll tell you what, if the Giants are gonna make a move, the trade deadline is at the perfect point in the year because you'll be able to adjust that guy for 2 weeks.
Yep,
because it's right on November 1st. Is the trade deadline.
Maybe another reason they decided to pick that week for the bye. You never know.
Good point. Good point. I say I love it. See, this is why I love having you guys on. Yes, exactly. And if you think these guys are this good, wait till they get to their show and they do this for another 2 hours. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thanks to the dog and to the Tainah.
Thank you for having us on.
Hopefully we'll do this again next week because this has been fun. Hopefully we'll have
a win to talk about.
Yeah. And we'll talk about another win next week. Can we do that?
If we're winning, we keep doing the show. That's it. Period.
That's okay. Right. And if they lose, that's it. The show's over.
No, we still do the show.
We still do it.
Okay. Well, and you guys are going to have to, the sunglasses and
if we lose, I might have to shave for the next show.
Yeah.
Which will make Papa Guto happy.
Papa Guto will be very happy because he'll say, "Dog, you need to shave." He always lets me know.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We will be back on Monday. Hopefully, I'll have David Turner back to break down the game. Tuesday's Twitter Tuesday. Wednesday, to be determined. Hopefully, I'll have an interview for you guys on Wednesday. Next week, I've got Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. He's going to be for the crossover show. And then Friday, hopefully we'll be back here doing the live show once again. So thank you.
Don't say yourself. Sure, look how hard you work. You probably work harder than we do, to be honest with you.
Hey, listen, I just do what I have to do. I mean, I don't look for any accolades or anything like that. I mean,
it's okay. You just deserve them. Take a bow.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right, guys. Have a great one. We'll enjoy your football, and we'll see you on Monday.